Nike. For those of you who aren't aware, it's pronounced Nike. That's right, I'm getting all high and mighty about how to pronounce the one I know how to pronounce. Just leave me alone. In September of last year, Nike pulled the trigger on a new commercial celebrating 30 years of their Just Do It slogan. The ad featured many great and famous athletes, but also featured and was narrated by Colin Kaepernick. Colin was 30 at the time, which made him the same age as the slogan, which was neat. I guess he's always been the same age as the slogan. How does time work? This is a kind of cool commercial. It's encouraging. It prominently features and celebrates black athletes for their success, and it tacitly endorses Kaepernick's activism, which goes a little beyond kneeling, by the way. He's done a lot of work and given a lot of support to organizations that do some really great stuff. This is 100% the most tasteful and inspiring shoe commercial I've ever seen in my life. But the commercial's content or quality wasn't really the point. The point was what happened next, and we all knew what was going to happen next. Everyone who you can expect to be mad about people protesting police brutality got mad, and in a show of impotent rage at a shoe company for making bad commercial Mino-like, destroyed some of their personal property and started the hashtag #BurnYourNikes and tried to start a boycott. Our sound man just cut the Nike swoosh off his socks. Former Marine, get ready Nike, multiply that by the millions. Looks like he's never used scissors before. Nah, he was just so wound up, he didn't take time. It's a wonder he didn't cut himself. You think we'll roll over on shit like this? My troop friend was so mad at his socks, he couldn't even...
Not only am I burning my favorite pair of Nikes, you are burning your sales.
You think that's gonna happen? Over here, in reality, these bizarre, property-immolating protests against Nike for daring to feature a man who said police brutality was bad made everyone want to talk about Nike and how cool they were being and make fun of these people for days on end. Nike was being given hundreds of millions of dollars of free advertising by people trying to punish them. Nike's value went up by, are you ready for this? $6 billion. By jolly, governor! That's a lot of shoes! Why did I do that? And they couldn't have done it without dozens of sad little boys telling you just how much bird-brained little shitheads like them hate Nike. Congratulations, kid!
Throwing this in the fire because of Colin Kaepernick is now the face of Nike. Take this, Nike.
Take this, Nike. He thinks he's hurting Nike by doing this. $6 billion. $6 billion.
5 pairs of shoes in there, all gonna let them
5 pairs of shoes? He bought one of those like 3 days ago, right? You can still wear them, you can just not buy more. He can't even shut the fucking thing properly. And the national anthem's fucking blaring. Fuck. It's so good! I forgot how good it is!
This happened because we made it happen. We played right into them, and if every time they want to call us hysterical, they can point at this and laugh. I'm sorry, I know it hurts, I know it sucks, but I'm trying to make it clear. This is the point. The point of this channel is to make the left better, to make it healthier. The reactions of this were not good.
You could not live with your own failure. Where did that bring you? Back to me.
Hey everyone. So, here's the thing. Before we go into this segment, we gotta give a couple caveats.
Yeah, so your personal feelings on the game, those are valid. Just want to assure you, it's valid to have those feelings come up. And our general stance here is if you don't want to play it, don't. If you want to play it, go ahead. But understand that there is trauma around this. There's also problematic content around this. And if you are easily triggered or reactive, please take care of yourselves. Take a break from stream. Go ahead and leave stream chat. It's okay. We are very serious. Take the break. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's...
The other thing I want to just mention is that we recognize that this discourse has been incredibly toxic, and I can't say that we're not going to get angry during this, but I want to be clear that, like, even if we bring up some other person or some other thing, that we are not necessarily saying that person is all good or all bad. This is not about essentializing. It is talking about this very specific thing. Yes, you were poking my elbow.
Oh, no, sorry, I was itching.
Okay. So
yes, I agree. There's more to a person than just the face that you see of them on the internet or just a single take.
Yeah. So again, I want to reiterate what Zena said. I'm serious. If you are really unable to handle this, if you feel like this topic is just too fucking hot for you, fucking leave. I'm not joking. I really need you guys to be really clear with yourselves. If this topic is going to trigger you, if you're going to hear a perspective you don't agree with and it's going to cause you to lose your shit, leave. Not because I don't love you, not because we don't want you here, and certainly we don't want to like lose you as a member of our community, but I really do want to make sure people are taking care of themselves. So I'm going to double down on that, and we will return to these caveats occasionally if need be.
Yeah. And there will be a VOD out later, so if you miss something, don't worry, you can come back. Oh, I was going to mention, as far as...
elbow.
I'm sorry, I'm also feeling snuggly.
Okay, give my arm.
Okay, that's better. So, throughout our channel, we've also talked about a concept. You can like whatever you like, and it's okay, right? And we just ask that you come at whatever it is with a critical mind. That's all. All right? And we've had this take for a long time. This is one that people have heard us talk about quite often in reference to a certain orchard, particularly because there's a lot of problematic stuff in there, or there are other internet communities who demonize people for liking certain kinds of media or writing certain kinds of things, right? So we have some other videos on that take to go more into detail, but that one is still in effect here.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's start off by a couple recaps.
Yeah.
So, real quick, how we got here. We'll be getting to this left side in a minute. So we're going to recap offense versus harm. So if you've watched us before, you are aware of the fact that we have a series on here that is about comparing offense versus harm. And we define those as offense is personal bother, hurt, trigger, or whatnot around a particular topic, event, or thing, while harm is described as systemic and very much causing, the quality of life of people to change, often negatively, significantly negatively, in fact. The thing here is to understand this is that we look at situations as part of case studies for this in order to understand offense versus harm. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of our previous stuff or anything about offense versus harm that comes up for you?
Offense versus harm is particularly looking as well at things from different levels or layers. Right, we've got the personal level and the harm level, which is on the much greater systemic level. Particularly with offense, we don't mean this in the way that the right does, all right? The thing that we note about this is that the right tends to go, everything is offense, all right? You're just a special snowflake. You're just offended, all right? On the left tends to go, well, everything is harm. This single tweet is systemically harming the entire group of women or the entire group of this or that, all right? And so we usually see those things very, very polarized. And we're here to say, nah, maybe it's not that simple. With offense, we also don't mean that your offense at something is invalid. It is. If you have something coming up and there is some problematic thing going on that you need to deal with, no, that offense is still valid, right? You may still want to hash it out with your friends, figure out apologies and all of that.
So in an effort to better outline the offense versus harm idea, we came up with the following. What we've been trying to do is outline a way of looking at characteristics a la Echo's 14 Characteristics of Fascism and attempt to basically try to understand and figure out what are the characteristics of the people who are bringing down the overall leftist movement and seem more interested in social interactions and moralizing as control mechanisms rather than genuine political goals. The name is so clumsy. Come up with a better one then. No one likes woke scold, and tenderqueer sounds weirdly like I'm doing a homophobia. So come up with something better then. You can also just call them PPs.
That's true.
It's very fun to say the PPs are mad. Previously, we outlined the idea that there were 6 characteristics we outlined previous stream. And I've added some things to these, but let's go through them.
Crybully uses victimhood as a weapon. A. More intersectional oppressional points means more intrinsic moral authority. How are moralistic hierarchies being defined? B. Appealing to the victimhood of other people while taking over them and other people with the same or similar intersection of identity or kind of victimhood. 2. Totalitarian tendencies. Threats of violence, but not as self-defense. Also authoritarian.
See Lily Orchard saying she's a gender totalitarian. I don't know what that means, but it sounds violent. Number 3, cancel culture. Canceling as mob justice or witch hunt. There are 6 specific points we took from counterpoints. Thank you, Natalie. And those are as follows. Trope 1, presumption of guilt. Whenever you hear any kind of allegation against any particular person, there is a way in which every single time the assumption of guilt is made. There's no innocent before proven guilty. It is immediately assumed, right? So there was a psyop against Keffels where a rando account that was a pit crew started making claims of racism and all this stuff and clipped her out of context. And it worked and caused a massive issue where this was spread across the internet. This is presumption of guilt. Because there are people who don't like Keffels, they assume out the gate that she is in fact somehow always guilty. So, trope 2, abstraction. So it stops being about the singular allegation and becomes a much larger abstraction. So it goes from saying like, this person allegedly did this to this person did this. Now we get into more abstractions. So like with Natalie Wynn, it was, Natalie has done an MB-phobia. Natalie is an MB-phobe, right? The abstraction of it. Essentialism. This is true with like, Vaush made an argument saying that, you know, it's weird that we get hung up on certain types of exploitation of children, but not other ones. We seem to pick and choose. This gets clipped out of context. And now essentialism, Vaush is a pedo, right? You first, the presumption of guilt. The clips must be true. The abstraction, he's talking about being okay to do this when in fact that's a clip out of context. And then, shouldn't be quotation, it was a clip out of context. And then the essentialism of pedo. Pseudo-intellectual or moralism. People come in swinging and basically start making all sorts of argumentation about the way in which this is true. But the problem being is when they do so, they often come in with as much moralistic outrage and intellectual nonsense as humanly possible. No forgiveness. The internet does not forget. Trope 5 is no forgiveness. The idea that no matter what you've done, no matter what you've explained, no matter what thing has been alleged against you, you are forever sinned. We are worse than the Catholic Church with fucking cardinal sins. This is why Lindsay Ellis had an entire list of nonsense against her from circa like 2012. Trope 6, the transitive property of cancellation. This is the idea that anyone who is canceled is by definition, according to the PP, puritanical progressivist, according to the PPs, you are by definition tainted if you interact with them. This is literally social contagion.
Yep. Where have we heard that word before?
Right? Like, this is social
Gender
contagion.
criticals and turfs.
Yep. Number 4.
Conflation of offense versus harm. The right believes that everything is offense. The left believes everything is harm.
Yep.
We talked about this earlier at the beginning.
To reiterate that idea very quickly, the right makes everything offense because it allows them to minimize and ignore systemic harm. The left makes everything harm to strengthen their arguments, but it starts to create an issue of essentially becoming the boy who cried wolf. If we treat everything equally bad, then nothing is bad.
Mm-hmm. And there's no tolerance for even, small issues left or issues that could be handled with an interpersonal approach, right?
Also, I would argue that the conflation of offense versus harm on the left is what leads to Duberism. If everything is harm and everything is going to be bad forever, then what's going to happen is everything's bad. 5.
Redemption is impossible or so hard as to not be worth it. A. Disingenuous entreaty to take responsibility/accountability ties into punishment being deserved. Punishment being a euphemism for abuse. And B, no entry for the former members of the right.
Number 6, weaponization of selective identity politics. Essentializing marginalized groups. This is treating them as though they're a monolith. And then using that idea to back whatever the person is saying rhetorically. So this is something we saw with the Lindsay Ellis cancellation, where it essentially became a problem of her having offended Asian Americans. But this was talked about as though this was very much a monolithic thing, that she had, at an objective level, offended them. But in reality, there were people that were defended her that were part of the Asian American community. There were people that were against her. There were people that were completely ambivalent. The problem is people will weaponize this for their own uses, especially to get brownie points. And one of the things that's really frustrating about this is that in a lot of cases, this type of weaponization becomes a way in which to deny a person's identity. So, especially if they don't agree. So, for example, if you are indigenous and you don't agree with supposedly whatever cancellations involving indigenous people, people will absolutely, in some way, shape, or form, argue away your identity. It's really fucked up.
Yeah, instead of just saying they disagree, you are no longer that thing or have that experience.
Number 7, moralistic hierarchy. So this is the thing we've noticed with this whole Hogwarts Legacy issue, is that by definition, there is a problem of essentially acquiesce or die, bend the knee. You must go along with the narrative as it is stated. And the problem is that this is met by all sorts of behavior and aggression if it's not. This is almost behaviorally similar to what happens in fascism. Disagreement means you are ontologically evil on the left, which is just another way of saying disagreement is treason. You'll see this in the discussions around this particular topic, and we'll cover this again as we go, but specifically you'll see the discussions where if you are a person who is in whatever way disagreeing with the particular narrative, you are treated immediately as a transphobe or an anti-Semite. Even if you say the game is bad, even if you say the game is those things, but you still want to check it out, if you still want to play it. We'll cover this more as we go, but there's this odd conflation of somehow, again, contagion. If you interact with this thing, you are thus bad. C, narcissism of small differences. This came from someone online, and I thought it was very brilliant. I forget the gentleman's name, but basically it comes out to always critique the left, but rarely does so to the right. So in the moralistic hierarchy, the way you maintain control is by continually critiquing your own people. You see this from people like Lily Orchard. She'll make little comments about the right here and there, but generally she's usually going after other lefties. She has way more videos going after people such as Rebecca Sugar or ContraPoints or Vaush or whomever. Ethel does the same thing. Ethel goes after people like Xanderhall or Vaush or Contra or Lily. And even if you want to argue that some of these people aren't on the left, this is a really strange way to maintain control because it doesn't actually fight our enemies. Number 8. You want to go with this one, Kisses?
Yeah. So we've got number 8, in-group versus out-group. Splitting. A la BPD. And we say this because this is a common symptom of, or a possible symptom of BPD.
I can explain that real quick.
Yeah.
So in borderline personality disorder, which I have, basically one of the traits is known as the tendency to move between either idealization or devaluation, or what I call demonization. And the idea is that when you're with somebody, you can either absolutely like them to the point where you will see no flaws, which has problems, or you will in some way see them as all flaws, and these are both reactions to abandonment. Now, in the case of this situation, the splitting looks differently. You are either a moral upstanding individual or you are dog shit. If you don't play this game, you are a good one. And if you don't play this game, or if you do play this game, you are somehow bad. This is essentialist thinking at its core.
We're on 8A?
Yep.
All right. Can be a person claiming representation when only repping themselves or their faction/side, but it's often an ally thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what we're saying with this is that a person will use representation or speaking for a group as an ally in a way to essentially put themselves part of the in-group and then use that as a way to lash out, when in reality, they're not really trying to help that larger group. What they're essentially doing is making themselves part of the in-group of socially approved individuals, right? So understand this. This is how this stuff functions. Katie, we'll get to that in a minute. Yugimoto, shut up.
All right, 9. Purity culture. One drop of flaw is enough to condemn a reactionary, but no way to prove someone is a progressive, say provides.
Yeah, we will say someone is a progressive entirely based on vibes and nothing else. And yet, when we come into the issue of reactionary thinking, the problem is that if someone is viewed as a reactionary or an alt-righter or a transphobe or whatnot, if there is one stain in their background. And so this reminds me a lot of the way racism is framed, right? The idea that if there's a single drop of black blood, you are in fact not white. And this is a really weird idea because one, it doesn't make sense biologically, but also it's a strange way of engaging because it means that if you've had any kind of flub, you are condemned forever, as we said before, no forgiveness. But on top of this, and again, redemption is impossible, but on top of it, it also does another thing. Anyone can be a progressive as long as the people judging them say so via vibes. How many motherfuckers have defended DJ Mule? I'm serious. How many people have defended DJ Mule? Not because he's actually a progressive, not because, he doesn't look like a rapist in a Renaissance fair. That is a joke, by the way, for legal purposes. The thing is that by definition, they treat him as good only because of vibes. That is really weird.
Number 10. I like pancakes. So you hate waffles?
So I don't know how well you can see this tweet, but this came from a particular tweet by a gentleman by the name of Cooley Bravo. And this is, I don't really need to go into detail because you'll understand this if you've been on Twitter. Twitter, the only place where well-articulated sentences still get misinterpreted. You can say, I like pancakes, and someone will say, so you hate waffles? No, bitch, that's a whole new sentence. What the fuck are you talking about? How many times have you seen arguments on Twitter go this way? I like Harry Potter. I mean, I personally don't, but this is a hypothetical. I like Harry Potter. I like Harry Potter. Oh, so you're a transphobe? What? I didn't say that. Wait, what? Like, that's the logic. Is that it's this bizarre essentialization where you take and twist the person's language to make an entirely different meaning out of it.
Well, and it does involve quite a bit of essentialization too in there, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
What are some other good examples on that one?
I like pancakes, but so you hate waffles? Oh, God. I don't think what Keffels did was that bad. Oh, so you're a racist.
Oh, yeah. I don't think Vaush was a pedo.
Oh, so you're now doing pedo apology somehow.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't think we should necessarily stigmatize this is one of the arguments we made on the channel. You don't think we should necessarily stigmatize non-acting pedophiles because if we did stigmatize them, that would prevent them from going to therapy and thus would possibly increase the number of crimes done. Oh, so you don't want to actually go after pedos. Like, that's the kind of logic we're talking about here. Yeah, the Keffels noodles are tasty, racist, you hate Asian people. Like, it's that level of jump where people interpret you as in the most negative way possible. Hey, this thing's really similar to Avatar: The Last Airbender. So you hate Asian people? What? That's a whole new sentence. Right? And so number 11.
Okay. Social clique over political movement. This one's been made a lot. So A, lack of actual interest in developing leftism as a political movement due to being more interested in treating it as a social clique of friends or enablers. This makes them push away more generalized progressivism in favor of a super complex form of leftism they can have control over. So, real quick about A, this is where we see like a lot of people go really ham and really too nuanced, honestly, with the progressivism, with the expectation that people should know about this, be able to know about this kind of thing going on, right? So really, really in-depth takes about queer theory that you probably wouldn't know if you hadn't been around queer theory before, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of people know general stuff about, okay, you know what, don't do X, Y, and Z with queers, right? Don't ask about body parts because we wouldn't ask other people about their body parts, right? But this might be where Like, you have to know all of these really tiny minutiae about things that, maybe not everybody has had a chance to think through with some of the more complicated theory parts.
Yeah. So the thing I would add to this is another example is, let's go back to the DJ Mule thing. Have you ever noticed the hug box that exists between Sophie from Mars, DJ Mule, FD Signifier, Kira Chats, and I don't know, throw a couple other people in there maybe. But like, what happens is, again, lack of interest in developing actual leftism. How many of their videos actually talk about how to actually do a thing? How many of them have done actual charities? Or, live streams where there was actually play? Thought Slime. Yes, yeah. Thought Slime's on there. Thought Slime's awful. Every time I see their face. Anyway, moving on. And Noah Sampson. Yes, there are many people that are in fact just soy. Moving on. This becomes a group of enablers, and this becomes a group of it becomes a social clique more interested in maintaining the social clique and protecting the social clique than an actual political movement. The left is not friends. We are not your friends. The reality is we are here to hopefully put out takes that will make things better. Eventually, if this channel gets big enough, we want to do charities. We want to have help. We want to bring people over. Hell, there's an interview that's like 6 months old we've been meaning to get to with a person who's a political advisor who's a trans woman. We just suck at scheduling people.
Yeah. And I think this is a really important one because we see this with a lot of communities or Discord servers, where particularly, it is treated much more like a social thing, even though we're talking about like progressive and lefty values. And that's one that especially is one that I deal with in person a lot. When I'm running LGBTQ clubs, I can't even hardly get people to run like a game, let alone go to activism, all right? Like at my school, we joined, it was pretty much me and maybe one or two other people who joined at the political science club, which is full of a bunch of like straight and cis people, okay, to go get our queer rights adjusted and put into the books at our college. That's how bad it was, which we did succeed, okay? So that's what it was.
Yes. So part B is for me, but not for thee, and vice versa. So what this comes down to is, and this is going to be a huge aspect of this entire discussion. I want you guys to remember this last part because this is the fucking crux of a lot of this. I understand that trans people get a shit ton of hate online. I understand we get a ton of bullshit. But I saw people doing the same shit who are either trans or allies or just leftists lashing out at people. And then what happens is they justify it by pretending they were the ones that were attacked first because the person bought a game. They pretend that was the first strike and then act in self-defense and lash out with harassment. And we're going to get to a bunch of examples because a lot of people are minimizing this. We found numerous examples. Where people have been absolutely treated like hell for a video game. And I really need you guys to understand this. So what this comes down to is why have this list? Because this list gives us the ability to understand where this problem is, this cancer within the left. This lets us understand the lily orchards and the essences of thought. The people, or the DJ Mules or the other people, the people that are interested only in maintaining their own personal power, have no interest in actual coalition building, have no interest in actual working with other people, and to varying degrees, because this works like criteria, right? It's the same thing as the DSM criteria or the characteristics by Echo.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to have these. Some people are going to have some of them. Some of them are going to have a lot more of them. I would argue the DJ Mule crowd probably has like 4 or 5 of them. But you know who has a ton of them? Lily, Essence of Thought, etc.
Well, and some people may only have one. I think there are definitely ways that everybody can get stuck in this occasionally. The problem comes when you're doing a lot of it all the time, or if you're not catching yourself that these are the things that are going on.
Yep, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And not seeing these means that it's very hard to confuse them for other leftists.
Absolutely. Well, and like the offense versus harm one, right? Or the conflation of it. That's a really, really common one. A lot of times when lefties feel like they're not being heard, they're not being seen in some way, or the other person isn't responding in a way that makes sense to you, there's a tendency to try and make your claim look bigger in some way. Make it, because the idea is that because there is more large scale harm, your claim's larger. Okay. Unfortunately, that's not really true. Sometimes it is that you really do have big feelings on the event, on whatever it was that struck that, right? And that's okay. Your feelings are valid and big, but it's easy to get into the distortion of it, though.
Yeah. So I actually have on here a list of things about social ecology, but I wanted to actually hold off on this because if we talk to Beyond Safe Words about it, I actually think this might be a better thing for us to go over with her.
No, I agree.
So I'm going to hold off on that one. We're going to put a pin in that. But I want you to understand the way the social ecology works is that the way that you use shame and pressure and aggressiveness changes the space and can actually influence not just the individual, but can actually start causing the whole discourse to shift and change in really toxic ways. This is something that I think Sam is way better at discussing, and I want to hold off on that. I think me and ZZ are agreed. So there will be future Beyond Safe Words discussions. D. History of J.K. Rowling. Let's be very clear. J.K. Rowling will not be remembered well in history. She will be remembered up there with people like David Duke. She is the leader of a hate movement and does so entirely out of her own inability to own her gender ambiguous feelings from when she was young and because of her sexual assault. Simple as. The woman also has a tremendous amount of racism and transphobia in her background. Not only is she absolutely just a biological essentialist, and not only that, but really bad at it, but on top of every transphobic thing she's also done some really weird shit in Harry Potter. Cho Chang is literally like, if I remember correctly, it's like 2 Korean last names together. Am I wrong on that? Am I remembering that? I remember it's Korean correctly? So that's nasty.
It's also pretty much just the language of it is...
Oh, one is Korean, one is Chinese. Thank you.
And just the language of it has been, a racist thing that people would kind of say. So... Oh, yeah, absolutely. Even in general there, it gets a little weird.
On top of that, the goblins, when you walk into Gringotts, Gringotts Bank or whatever it was?
Oh, yeah.
And you see all of the long nose, like, literally 4chan caricatures of Jews, you have to go, okay, this is a little anti-Semitic. And then you notice the 6-point star on the ground in the bank, and you go, this is also still anti-Semitic. She's not great on this. She also seems to have some really weird views about the poor. Like, the Weasley family gets treated like shit through most of this, because the issue is that, like, it's very clear to me she just doesn't like poor people either. So let's be clear, she is not a good person. J.K. Rowling wrote a mediocre series that had some pretty decent movies, depending on the movie. I still stand for it because it had the hot 25-year-old French girl in it, but you do you. And I double-checked she was 25 in that movie. Fight me. The problem is that as time has gone on, it's become very clear that she is a transphobe. She's kind of homophobic. She's definitely a classist and kind of super racist.
Oh, and fatphobic too.
Oh, and apparently fatphobic too.
Lindsay Ellis has a whole thing about how, has a video about how in her books, like, weight comes up in really, really weird ways too. Oh, Carbon Cult. Yeah, that's what I was referencing earlier was, yeah, the name, Cho Chang's name sounds like a slur. Yeah.
It does sound like it does.
Yeah, that was a slur. Yeah, that's Mm-hmm.
So we know she be bad. All right.
There's a lot of information out there. If you need, more info on just how bad she is, there's a lot of tweet records.
Yeah, Weasley is supposed to be Irish and the spells explode on him. Yeah, that's a little on the nose. Anyway, so I want to be clear with this whole critique. We're not saying that she's not bad. She is bad. She is a hate monger. She is a person who does demonstrable harm to trans people and really anything she comes in contact with. But she's not the argument. She's not the thing we're trying to point at. And things get more complicated when you have the level of abstraction we have with a video game. So let's get into the recent events that have happened now that we've got all the background and go from there.
Real quick, I did want to add a little bit to some of the history context. A lot of my memory of reading those books as a kid and then also having a lot of friends in fandom.
Mm-hmm.
Right. This has been a particularly weird series because depending on what level you read the book, like what comprehension level or levels is in like personal or more in-depth kind of thing, right? you could easily get different messages out of this, right? A kid who hasn't been educated in literary criticism very much is going to get a very different message than, say, an older person who has had a lot of education on, history and fascism, and the Holocaust and all of that, right? And so I remember a lot of people, like, this was a series where, like, no, an abused kid lived in a closet. Like, how much closer do you get to, like, the queer narrative, okay? And Rowling seems to accidentally have stumbled upon this, so there was always a lot of fandom in my memory where there's a lot of queer people around who took the messages that they want and ran with it. They took the messages about diversity and the messages about, like, the fanciful enjoyment of the world building, right? It's a soft world building. Does it really make sense? No. But the constantly exploring a new thing constantly happening that's shiny and big and neat, no, that was really fun. And there's all sorts of stuff with people, like, making fun of the houses, or, like, lots of stories joining houses together or changing that whole system entirely. And so I just wanted to keep that in mind because I do think that, like, queer stuff has been intertwined with this series, and it's unfortunate how everything went. But I do think that this history goes into why this is such a big emotional reaction right now. So that's what I had for that.
Here's the thing. Now that we've given you the history, now that we've talked about the list, now that we've gone over the background of offense versus harm, let's talk about what happened. So, recent events, this game has been hyped up for quite some time because of JK's awful, awful infamy. This is something that has been bantered about for at least 10 months. In fact, Vaush's video on this upcoming game was from 10 months ago. I literally looked it up because it came up in my recommendeds.
Yeah.
The game releases, and let's just talk about the game itself. We're going to put JK and the whole controversy discourse aside. Here are the claims against the game as a whole. 1, their claims of transphobia. 1, there's this argument going around that by buying this game, you are supporting JK Rowling. The problem is that's a partial truth.
Well, and supporting her in a couple different ways, right?
So one of the things you have to understand is that the way most games work with IP is the person is usually given an estimate of how many units are sold, and they're given a certain amount. If the game sells over that, they don't get from there. That's just how that works. And so the problem is that in a lot of ways, she probably got paid because it's her IP, but Warner Brothers has also been slowly pulling her away. So in a lot of ways, there is sort of a question about how much she got. And I want to be clear about something very quick. We'll come to this in a little bit. But the reality is we looked at about 4 or 5 different
articles,
and no one could give us a clear answer because no one knows. No one's seen it.
Yeah, so we do have...
Saint Dharma, I disagree entirely. Anyway.
So we did kind of note that in a lot of cases, like Proud Platypus is saying, how royalties work with video games is pretty complicated. Most of the money she got for it was up front. All right, that's about all we have to go off of. The thing with the monetary part, though, is that she's a billionaire.
She already has infinity dollars.
Yep. Her fortune has already been made. And more money is just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah, and the reality is that even if there is some royalties that come about later in her thing, again, I don't care. I'm just going to make that abundantly clear, starting off thinking, no one in here can actually emotionally conceive of $1 billion. You can't. And so when you say that you can, the problem is that in some ways you don't fight people like this. We'll talk about how to fight them in future parts of this, but I want you guys to understand this claim is going to be pushed on a lot tonight. Next, no causal harm. So the game doesn't seem to do harm in and of itself, other than the weird tropes it has in it. They just seem to be mostly vibes. Every time we came across a claim of transphobia, other than the one character, which we'll get to, there hasn't been any like overt issues that the average normie would pull out of the game as a transphobic thing. Now, the game has had the addition of a character, Sirona Ryan. Ignoring the really silliness of the name, it is weird that there is a rumor, or at least a report going around, that apparently the token for this character in the game...
In the code of the game.
Code of the game is set as Mr. Girl. First off, gross. Second off, If that's true, then that does tell us a little bit about the developers. And yes, we are aware of the fact that the lead guy that was running it until he left was in fact a giant racist asshole.
Well, we've just been kind of noting these events as really weird things, and a lot of it's just stuff that we just kind of have to hold in like a space of unknown for a little bit, right? Like at least until
we talk to more people and get more understanding. But again, I'm going to let's assume for a moment all of these are true. Let's assume all of this is true and all of these are bad. And yet, we're going to talk about why. I don't know how much that actually matters other than just it's a problematic game.
Mm-hmm. Did we want to touch on that real quick too?
Correct. So claims of anti-Semitism. So there's the obvious previous goblin claims, right? The goblins are essentially Jews, and there's some really weird shit around banking and all of that.
There is some stuff where it looks like there are differences between the goblins in the books and the movies versus the game. But this is something that, like, I really don't have enough education specifically in that area to really say if that's enough or a whole lot of what that means. There's also claims about blood libel. And then there's also a magic item. I forget what's the magic item.
It's some sort of horn that is related to, I believe, either Jewish mysticism or some Jewish relic. And, the shofar, yeah.
Yeah. it had a note about it being blown to annoy wizards and witches in the flavor text of the item.
Yeah, and so to me, the thing is that, well, this definitely does ring as fucking weird. It also comes off as, again, this is a problematic game, probably made by very problematic people. But we wanted to acknowledge these claims because we don't want people to feel like we're going into this and saying we like this game or we want this game to be a thing.
Well, and we're pretty confident that our arguments still work, even if these things are found to be true and are found to be that bad. So we do feel confident going, yeah, let's pretend that they are true and 100% bad and not great and problematic for now. Right?
Yeah. So let's move on to this. So here is the inciting incident. And we're going to listen to this together. This is what kind of caused Twitter to lose its goddamn mind. Hasan Piker, through Dextro, pointed out this particular thing that was something going on in the minds of a lot of streamers. And so I think it's important for us to listen to this and understand it. Let's get started.
The only reason why I'm not playing this game, and I know a bunch of other people are not playing this game, is because we know that it's not worth it to get fucking bullied endlessly and called transphobic endlessly in when we have massive queer communities and audiences. That's it. Everybody knows, everybody fucking knows how much leftist motherfuckers love to chirp on the internet. They got no power. All they do is chirp, chirp, chirp. And that's precisely why so many fucking people that would otherwise like play it, maybe even raise money for, charities or whatever. They're not doing it. I knew that this was going to happen. That's why I wanted to set it up ahead of time. I got fucking yelled at endlessly and relentlessly on my alt account. Like they were making it seem like I was already transphobic for even thinking about this. And now look at that.
So needless to say, the reaction of Twitter was god-awful about this. There was a way that this game took on almost a life of contagion, where it was treated in some way where any interaction with it whatsoever was immediately proof of flaw, proof of evil. The problem is that Hasan has a correct perspective here in our minds. I want to be really clear, by the way, he said lefties. That's going to come up important later. But again, lefties.
The claim was that he would be called transphobic, right?
By lefties.
Yes.
So this is the charity that Hasan did. Hasan's community has officially raised $1 million after 3 days of relief effort after a 7.8 magnitude earthquake in Turkey and Syria. He personally donated $45,000. So we don't need to listen to this video, but I want to be really clear. When he says that he could have done a charity, I want you to think about just some of the ways that charity could have gone down. Sure, that could have gone to something like, the Trevor Project or, some other well-known organization. But there's also the possibility where you could have taken that $1 million and donated 20 grand to every GoFundMe you saw that came up. How many trans people could have gotten their surgeries with $1 million just directly in their GoFundMes? And you make an account and name it J.K. Rowling, and then you proceed to dump that money in there under her name.
I gotta be honest, $1 million is massively game changing for a charity, especially because a lot of the organizations that run stuff for queer folks are running on tiny ass budgets because that's all they've got, because their governments aren't that great.
So with that said, it's very clear this could have been
funding them at any rate.
Yeah, this could have been a thing. Hasan, in our view, is correct. This is a proper ally. You don't beat JK by trying to take money away from her because she already has infinity dollars. What you do is you go against the one thing that she can't protect, her ego.
Mm-hmm.
If you help hundreds of trans women with their transitions,
easily thousands,
and you make it so those women or men or non-binary people get the things that they want, you can watch her lose her goddamn mind. And the whole time you could be making fun of the game, you could do all sorts of MST type shit. It'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
We use it to our advantage. But here's the response that Hasan got. And we need to talk about it because it's real bad. This is going to be at 2 times speed or 1.5 times speed because it's fucking long. Let's go. We're going to pause it occasionally and give critique.
We are really pushing the internet.
Hey everybody, so I'm at an airport and the lighting is poor. We'll talk about that later, but more importantly, I'm wanting to talk about the fact that I'm a fan of leftist streamer Hasan. I don't think he's perfect, I don't always agree with him, but I like him quite a lot, and I think he does a lot of really good work, and I think he's a good egg. I think he's a real good egg overall. But
I don't believe her on this. Based on her future tweets and some of the ways that she is essentially, at best case scenario, minimized, at worst case scenario, gaslit people about the amount of harassment happening, I do not believe this. This
Isn't
comes
it weird
off as
to call him an egg?
That's a joke. That's fine.
I know it's a joke, but it's still a weird place to put that one, especially because, like...
I'll let it go. It's fine.
That's a weird one, yeah. All right.
Good egg, but good egg comes from, like, Willy Wonka, so it could be a reference to that, not necessarily egg in the trans sense.
Yeah, whatever. Mm-hmm.
But recently, because this is online, he got into a bit of drama, as happens sadly a lot with content creators, and shout out to FD Signifier's great recent video on this topic, by the way. But this...
I want to be very clear. First off, being harassed by thousands of people on Twitter is the same thing people argue about when they say Vaush's community goes after people, or when Demon Mama's community goes after people. This is the same argument. So when it's done to someone they don't like, it's drama. When it's someone done to someone like Professor Flowers, it's harassment.
Just so you know, I was grimacing at the FD Signifier video because we recently figured out.
Oh yeah, shout out to FD Signifier for his weird ass fucking inclusion of a joke out of a 2-hour long stream where a person with an education background and 2 clinicians systematically broke down DJ Mule's utterly fucking repugnant video. Anyway, let's go.
Drama was about how he, Hasan, wanted to play on his stream a certain wizarding game, controversial for reasons that I spoke about in a recent video, in order to raise money for transgender charities.
A video she said would be her last one about J.K. Rowling, but here we are.
To try to use a game that is part of a wizarding franchise that is owned by an anti-trans bigot doing active harm to trans people to fight back by doing a charity stream to try to make money for trans people, though she is directly harming. Honestly and truly, I think that is a fantastic impulse. It's a kind one, it's a caring one, it's one that shows he has a desire to do good, to help, to be kind, and to try to make change, that is his first desire.
I also don't believe this, because the reactions that came in, especially after her last video and a lot of the harassment she got, I don't know what effect that has. But this comes off as very odd to me because the reaction to the claims about different streamers being harassed, the level of apathy that was given later, and we'll talk about this, doesn't really gel with this in hindsight.
And I think that speaks all very well of him and who he is and what he tries to do with his work and his platform. And I'm sure if he did do that charity stream, that it would make a lot of money for transgender charities, which is awesome. However, there is an issue. He is a leader for many in many communities, not just the leftist community, but the streamer community and many others, including a leader for many trans people. And I see a lot of folks, including other streamers or even transgender streamers.
So that would be the argument that he would raise a shit ton of money. Continue.
Say, oh, well, if he can play the game, then I can. And then I see other people who look up to those streamers and leaders and say, oh, if they can play it, then I can donate to trans charities.
This is a slippery slope fallacy, by the way. So Jessie Gender is making an argument that because he plays it, other people can. But again, let's be super clear. Hasan has never claimed any kind of leadership. And the other thing is that all he has to say is don't buy the game, watch me play it. I'll be funnier than this game ever could be.
Oh, absolutely, right?
Would everybody listen? No. But would a lot? I don't know.
And play it myself. But here's the thing. Now that everyone here has bought and played the Transphobes game and gave it more money and attention and validity, that's what you've used your platforms to do, to give validity to this game, to say...
Playing the game does not give it validity. And actually what you're trying to say is it gives her platform, her version of reality, validity. But I don't know if that's true.
Is okay. It makes her relevant. It makes her platform and franchise relevant and allows her to...
Citation needed? How?
Keep justifying and causing harm to the transgender community, and also keeps telling the people in charge of this franchise that yes, they can still keep making stuff within it and make money while she's still doing her horrible stuff.
And I'm not just talking about generally in our culture today, but I'm saying that this is happening within our own spaces that are supposed to be directly transgender supportive. Yes, the world sucks. Yes, it's breaking streaming records, and that sucks. But it doesn't mean that we have to replicate that economy within our own spaces that are supposed to be safe for trans people.
It supports her economy, not ours, not the marginalized, not transgender people's.
It supports everyone's economy. We're all in the same system.
And it normalizes in everyday discussions and discourses, keeping her and her platform in our attention, in our mind, in our culture.
She already is, because every one of you reacts terribly every single time she tweets.
And we need to not do that. We don't use the tools of the oppressor to take down the oppressor.
And here we are, the thing I wanted to fucking take down. So the quote she's using poorly is this. For the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. They may allow us to temporarily beat him at his own game, but they will never enable us to bring about genuine change. Racism and homophobia are real conditions of all of our lives in this place and time. I urge each one of us here to reach down into that deep place of knowledge inside herself and touch that terror and loathing of any difference that lives here. See whose face it wears. Then the personal as the political can begin to illuminate all of our choices. Not only is this a call to unity, but this is also, so that violates what she's saying. So she's entirely taken what is a feminist black lesbian from Harlem's fucking quote and butchered it to make the opposite point. And also, I want to be clear, this quote is also going against white privilege. There's a really great podcast by Wisecrack where they were talking about the movie Get Out. And they were talking about a version of philosophy known as Afro-pessimism. And in one version of that philosophy, they use this quote. The belief is that in some ways, to take apart white privilege, you can't use white privilege. And they use an example in the movie Get Out where there's that scene at the beginning where his girlfriend and him get pulled over and the cop asks for his license. There's no reason for that. He wasn't driving, but she still does, or he still does. And then the girl gets in his face and uses her white privilege to shoo him away. The problem with this is that she's using white privilege to fight white privilege. Now, we know, obviously, if you've seen the movie, that she has an ulterior motive. But this is what this is referring to. Jessie is completely taking this out of context, and on one level, I would dare say, like, kind of appropriating it.
Yeah.
And also, to some degree, using it in the exact opposite meaning of what it's supposed to be. I'm just saying, like, again, this woman was brilliant, and when you misquote her, I think you are doing an injustice. Look at this. Where is it? Where's the bar? There's the bar. Revolutionary black feminist. She did poetry in the 1960s. Huge number of poetry books. Again, civil rights, anti-war feminist movement. She was known lesbian. Like, this is where I get really bothered, is she's doing a lib take of a queen. And it really bothers me.
I'm not saying we're going to be able to take down the oppressor today, but playing that game is playing on her and transphobic terms. This is what
But that's the only terms we have. This isn't fighting white privilege. We live in a streamer culture, one that we can weaponize. What this sounds like is you just don't like the game, and so you don't want to use it in that way, because to do so is somehow distasteful. This is what we mean by no real harm, just vibes. Well, it will add to her platform. How? This is what me and Zena kept asking every single fucking person that came about with this.
And others talk about when we say don't play the wizarding game. It's not that you are a bad person or a bigot if you do, but what it's doing is not actually supporting trans people, and it's not being an active ally or accomplice to these.
Donating $20,000 to several GoFundMes is not helping trans people?
Or massively changing the budget of trans charity isn't helping?
You've raised $2,628 in how many weeks? Hasan could have done $1 million in 3 days. We have literally data on this. If he can do it for an earthquake, he could raise same amount with trans people.
Transgender community. Even if you do use it to try to do good things. We fight on our terms, not theirs. And a lot of people said this to Hasan, and good on him, he decided not to do the stream, which I think is a correct thing, but...
I noticed the reframing and the minimization. He was said in his video he was bullied into it, and she just said, well, good for him, he listened to them. Again. Bullied. And also notice, we keep talking about trans people when Hasan said leftists. This is a goalpost move.
A few things have happened in the discourse after that fact. First, people have said Hasan was bullied into not playing the game by trans...
Because he literally said that. And notice she said that. Go back.
Have happened in the discourse after that fact. First, people have said Hasan was bullied into not playing the game by transgender people. I'm sure...
So, did he ever say that in those videos?
Many people were assholes to Hasan during it. Said Hasan was bullied into...
It's really embarrassing that people, notice people, doesn't say trans people decided to bully Hasan into not streaming the Wizard game for charity when the material harm from playing the game is practically nil and there is now no money being raised for trans people. Based and fucking wise Keffels.
Yep.
Do not playing the game by transgender people. I'm sure many people were assholes to Hasan during this. Some of them quite possibly being trans and wanted to react...
You think?
Vitriolicated him for his initial impulse to play the transphobic game to help trans people. And that really sucks, because his intention was good. Don't harass streamers for playing the game. His intent was a good one, his hope was an earnest one, his desire was a good one. We don't use the tools of the oppressor to fight oppression. Oppressors...
Stop co-opting a black feminist's fucking quote, I swear to God I want to die. But here's the thing is like, also, he had a good intention, but we keep coming back to how that's bad, but she won't say how.
Yep.
How is it bad? How would this be bad? How would trans people be harmed by getting money in the form of help towards mermaids or the Trevor Project or 20 grand dumped into the GoFundMes of everyone except for Jay? Like, holy shit.
Harass. Oppressors view things in binary and essentialist terms and want to create antagonism. And they want us to do the exact same thing to each other. While we fight oppressors, while not harassing them, we don't do that to each other. We create...
You keep saying not harassing them, but that's exactly what people did. And we will bring up receipts on that very soon.
Dialogues. We work with our community and between communities in kindness and don't essentialize one's actions, but create meaningful conversations with each other based on the understanding that we are imperfect people imperfectly fighting a horrid system that hurts us all. Also, by framing the discussion as if trans people bullied him by saying that that was the overriding thing, which may even be completely true, it's ignoring the valid critiques that were being made, like the ones that I hopefully articulated earlier.
Except those critiques weren't well articulated. You said nothing and then misquoted a black poet. Like, this is crazy logic. Like, so here's the thing is, notice the shift in logic. This feels really strange. Notice what she said, that now framing it as harassment. She didn't say that Hasan framed it that way. She took it off him and put it on Keffels. Weird. I thought we're supposed to be helping other trans people, but weird that she uses one specific Keffels tweet to then almost put the blame on Keffels when Hasan said that he would be bullied by lefties and was bullied by lefties on his secondary account. Why the language change? Do you guys see that? Do you understand what she just did?
And it frames the discussion in terms of building a resentment against the marginalized, against trans people. It frames trans people as the aggressors in this entire situation, as if we're the hateful, hurtful ones, when in actuality, we're the ones being harmed in all of this. In fact, it's also...
So, the problem is she's saying a half-truth here, right? Zena, you can speak to this too, but the idea is like, yes, we are harmed at a systemic level, but that doesn't justify us lashing out at a personal level online.
Well, and this is where we get into the offense versus harm, right? Like, the problem is that, one, we at least need to be able to identify the harm. Like, that's really the big key here. And not in the conservative way of, oh, well, if you don't have, like, 8 different scientific studies that are all peer-reviewed and replicated, I mean, they don't listen to those anyways. But more in the way of you need to at least be able to demonstrate what the harm actually is when we're talking about, like, the effects of poverty on people, right? We can point to actual statistics and actual effects, all right? Or in our case, we can point to actual events or actual things going on. That's really important here. Mm-hmm. Where's I going with this? Sorry, brain fart. So the harm here is being made. So Hasan's decision is being made out to be a large systemic harm, right? Except in the streaming world, we get really confused because streamers are like celebrities, but not. Okay, some people make a lot of money doing streaming. Most everyone doesn't. Mm-hmm. But this is a celebrity. This is a type of celebrity, though, where like you really do have interactions with them. That's the whole point, right? You guys will have interactions with us. A lot of the people here we know or we check in with week to week when they come and share news with us. So we don't quite fit into the, well, this person's far away. So when we're talking about like harassment towards Hasan, no, this is one person who doesn't have like a buffer between him and fans like a celebrity would otherwise.
Additionally, and I'm going to bring this up later when we look at the receipts, but I also want to bring up a thing that is a leftist belief, a progressive belief, and I want to ask you where it is in this whole discourse. Believe all victims.
Mm-hmm.
Believe all victims. Why is his harassment minimized? Because he's big and powerful and rich, even though people have direct access to him and basically gave him shit? We're going to see how this actually worked on the ground with other people too. But this is the thing is, again, it's fine for me, but not for thee. Remember that language from the end of the list? That's what we were talking about.
Very important to point out that one of the biggest right-wing disinformation campaigns about transgender people is that we're all bullies trying to control what you say or do.
And they canceled it because she said in an interview, and this is not exactly what she said, but effectually, she said gender was a fact. And then the trans...
But the problem is that this narrative, and I'm sorry I keep pausing all the time, but there's so much bad here that gets to be pushed back on. So yes, there is a narrative within society that we are the bullies pushing back on this. And the problem is it is bullshit for the most part. The problem is that there are people online and there are ways in which cancellation happens that do make the trans community look bad. The way Natalie Wynn was treated made us look bad. The way Keffels has been treated makes us look bad. The fact that, like, in a lot of ways, when we get mad at someone for doing something...
Philosophy too.
Oh, or philosophy too, for that matter. With the way we lash out, it is a thing that in some ways does give this impression that we do this. And I know the follow-up video of this gets worse in that space. We're not going to go over tonight. We probably will next time. But this is... We have more than enough to go through tonight.
Community got mad as they started calling her a TERF. I didn't even know what that was. But I know that trans people make up words to win arguments.
The way that you can tell who holds all the power in a society is by who you can't make fun of, right?
That's right. So his speech is violence, their violence is speech. See how that works? What's interesting is that the number of people...
He just said nonsense.
...who really care about this issue enough to assault someone over it is tiny. And yet they have disproportionate power. 350 million people in the country, maybe 1,100 feel that way, but they're running everything. Why is that?
Most trans people are just saying this casually and trying to be reasonable, like I hopefully am trying to be myself. And yet the narrative always focuses on the loudest, most vitriolic voices.
I am literally a trans woman, and when I was online and pushed back on this, I got a shit ton of fucking hate for it.
You know, this was actually the first time I ever heard Poppy go, you know what? No, I actually need to step away, put up block filters and block words, and not touch Twitter for a while, like, on her own.
Yeah.
Like, Poppy never gets off, and that's how bad this shit was.
I mean, when I was on Cymbalta, I really never got off. Moving on.
Well.
in order to create a narrative around trans people. Now, I'm not saying that this is what Hasan is intentionally doing, but constantly framing trans people as bullies who are coming to attack you ultimately supports framing trans people as harassers.
So now he is framing it as bullying? Weird.
Oh yeah, we
bullies, which
saw
ultimately
that
feeds into the right-wing narrative
tropes.
around transgender people that frames us as the aggressors when really we are the ones being victimized. And by the way, I'm not saying that Hasan is contributing to this narrative intentionally, but certain people are taking it that way. Just like right-wing folks are currently using the fact that
That was just going back on what she just said a minute ago, or just said like in the last sentence.
Why are we getting double speak? I thought we were going over the PP characteristics, not the fascist ones. Weird. No, that was literally double speak. That was literally two contradictory sentences, like one after the other.
Yep.
Streamer started crying after some mild pushback from her community about her playing Hogwarts Legacy.
Mild? Mild? I need citation on this. Show me the clip. Show me what they said to her. All you're showing me is what Lonnie said about it, and let's be clear, I don't know who the fuck Lonnie is or why I should care.
Using it as the transes are bullying you. Also, these discourses make it about individuals, the person who's being bullied by the transes, instead of about the actual trans community, the entire group of people that is being harmed. It also forgets that trans people harass.
Oh no, when occasionally we go a little too far and violent and we end up bullying someone, oh God, we make it about the victim instead about us and us trying to pretend we're victims in this one circumstance. Hey, it's that cry bully thing we talked about earlier. Weird how that keeps coming the fuck up.
Oh yeah.
Use victimhood as weapon.
Harassed like this on the daily just for being trans online. I'm not saying all trans people are acting perfectly in all this. Some trans people may be angry and vitriolic towards Hasan and others, and that sucks. It is awful, and no one should be doing it. But a lot of trans people are hurting right now. We're imperfect people fighting a horrid system imperfectly. That's not to forgive them. It's not to say it's okay.
So wait, why are you given forgiveness for your actions, but then Keffel's got shit? You literally held up a Keffel's tweet, basically framing her as the start of the harassment campaign. It was really kind of gross, actually. And then, but now you guys get to, she's legitimately doing the innuendo with things described in the Ship of Theseus. Yeah. It is really weirdly reconstructing history in a way that doesn't make sense. I'm waiting for Zena to come back, so I will say this. We have covered Jessie Gender one other time before, and it was during the Wii Spa incident. And during that time, we had made some soft critiques about her video because it seemed like she kind of out of gut reaction kind of went with this narrative to support cis people out of, I don't know, fear, panic, whatever. And she listened to our critiques and it went well. But this goes well and above that. This isn't just immediately caving to fears of perception. This is in some ways doing the same thing FD Signifier does about DJ Mule. Am I wrong? Am I wrong, chat? Am I actually wrong on this? Ila Divine, thank you so much for the $5. The thing that angered me a lot is that when people would criticize Keffels, I heard a lot of them say she's a supposed trans woman. Yeah, I remember what we said in the list, is that your identity ceases to exist if you go against the actual system.
Oh yeah. Well, and I just saw claims of Keffels isn't autistic. She's not this thing or that thing or whatever else. It goes on and on.
But it's the understanding that we have to have when you have a marginalized group being attacked. And I know the criticism to this video will be, well, if he plays Hogwarts Legacy, then maybe people who might be watching an anti-trans streamer might watch him instead. But my argument back to that would be, instead of worrying about continual endless growth in a very capitalistic sort of mindset, why not worry about modeling how to fight for trans people and platform trans people to your audience? Be a champion to the audience.
How does this fight for trans people? You have yet to demonstrate that. You keep making claims and not really actually saying shit about them.
You already have. And hey, who knows, maybe by taking a stand, doing something different than the already tons of other people playing Hogwarts Legacy on the platform, you'll make your audience grow anyways by being someone different, by showing them a different way forward that's positive and helpful. But second, I also hear now that Hasan is not going to do anything. He's not going to do a trans charity stream. At least that's what I know at the time of this filming. Maybe that's changed. He's not going to play any game or talk about transgender issues during this time. Well, we don't, as activists, do things because people were dicks or because things are awful all the time. We don't be reactive. We be proactive. And being proactive means
no, y'all are pretty reactive. I've seen your Twitter.
Realizing you don't need the wizard game to do a transgender charity stream. You can just do a transgender charity stream. The wonderful video essayist Jacob Geller did one actually late last.
Oh my God, this is where it breaks down into complete utter nonsense.
For some reason, by her logic, I just get the sense that damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? There's no way out of this. Even if Hasan did try and center trans people, would it actually be enough?
Does anyone else feel like this whole, yeah, first off, you're right. And second off, does anyone else feel like her goody-goody routine doesn't work with this type of content and this kind of discussion because it comes off as disingenuous? I'm really trying not to be a bitch about this, but this is, and it sucks that she got targeted for that other J.K. Rowling video, But this is not the way to do it. This is not the way to handle things. And she's about to tell us a whole bunch of nonsense. And I really want you to hear these arguments because they're real bad.
Last year playing sword video games and raised thousands of dollars. Hell, the most effective trans charity stream that I'm personally aware of was of Donkey Kong 64, a game that is decades old.
These are unrelated.
You can just do a transgender charity stream. You don't need to play any specific game. In fact, even...
But the game is huge, or it was back then when you could have actually done it when the iron was hot. You could have done it right then.
Better, you can support not only a transgender charity stream, but a transgender artist at the same time. You can use your platform to play a game by a transgender person that others may not even have heard of. For example, Celeste comes to mind. Tell Me Why also is a game that has transgender artists and actors within it. Bloodborne PSX, the indie free...
None of these games are well-known or big, and aren't going to bring in as many people for donations as fighting and playing in and making fun of the turf game.
Oh yeah, both of those charity streams mentioned, were direct responses to current events. That's what Vaush has noted.
No, you're right. The $1 million was raised for the earthquake in Turkey and Syria. Well, you could do a raising for Turkey and Syria anytime. They could have an earthquake at any time. The fuck are you talking about?
Celeste is well known, and she paints it as an unknown trans game. Hold on, I had a thought.
It sold 1 million units. Jesus Christ.
When we're in streaming, we all know this, okay? You have to change the algorithm to some degree. That is just a part of the game. YouTube's algorithm is set up a certain way, and we all kind of note that, like, it's gonna favor things that are really big right then. Trust me, Poppy is always looking at the stats on our videos and keeping track of this stuff. And if we can hit the algorithm at the right time with current events, that video will easily reach thousands of people more than if we don't hit it. All right, and we're a small channel still, all right? So thousands is really big for us still. All right, and so no, playing older games that aren't really hot right now doesn't really work.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't do the same thing. And I have no doubt that Hasan knows this too.
Yep.
Right? How many people leave a Vaush stream when he starts streaming random video games?
He literally loses tens of thousands of people because they're not interested. You use what's there. You use the tools that's in front of you. This is like saying, hey, you know, this group of marginalized people ended up getting firearms and people are coming to attack you. Don't use those. What?
Mm-hmm.
Bloodborne PS1 remake is even better too. Give attention to the indie creator of Bloodborne PSX, who is a transgender woman who made that game out of a passion and desire to learn to be a better creator and wants to go on to do more cool projects beyond just Bloodborne remakes. And I honestly, by the way, recommend No Clip Gaming's wonderful documentary about her, by the way. Imagine if Hasan, one of the biggest streamers out there right now, streamed her game while doing a trans charity stream, gave her attention, and inspired other streamers to do the same. Would it be better number?
By the way, this is absolutely the worst argument. There's nothing proving this. And again, you are actively taking money away from trans people who wouldn't see this as much because you're playing games that are old as shit.
Than the Wizard game numbers? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not. But it would be doing things on our terms. Imagine Hasan streaming that game. It would help change the course of her career completely in a positive way. It would enable her and help a transgender creator be able to make more wonderful, beautiful things and put those...
I love the use of our terms. It's very in-group, out-group. That's also like this assumption that trans people are a monolith, right?
Yeah, but again, like it's if you show up weaponless to a fight except for your own brute strength, yeah, use your own thing. That person has a gun. Oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful things out in the world for other trans people to resonate with and other people who aren't trans to find and discover and see what trans people can do.
But you can do that as a different stream.
That she can make, what she has to say.
Argument.
And all of that would be done while doing a charity stream for trans people. But maybe some of you out there are like, look, those games are awesome, but they're too small. The Wizard game is trending right now and relevant. Twitch will eat that up. We need to play a trending game. And okay, if that's your argument, I got you there too. Play Last of Us Part 2.
That game is like 4 years old. This is where she goes. She goes to Last of Us 2 because she's going to make the argument. Watch.
A video game that is relevant right now because of the, I think, record-breaking HBO TV show. It's a video game that stars numerous queer actors and characters, including a transgender one played by Star Trek's own Ian Alexander, who is...
Let's be ineffective for virtue's sake. Yeah, no, absolutely safe.
This just feels like a bad faith, like just kind of a bad faith argument. It got cherry-picked, right? For the show is popular, but that doesn't mean anything about the game.
And no, she of course picks the game that is the one that was controversial as shit, and the controversy's already passed. If you're going to do a trans charity with this game, you should have done it back when it came out.
Boss, by the way, especially in that game. And the game was also made with several trans developers behind the scenes, including at least one that I know of in a lead developer role. And there might be more. And that's not even to mention that the TV show that is relevant right now stars Bella Ramsey, who is non-binary, and Pedro Pascal, who's one of the most adorable human beings of all freaking time, and also a vocal ally to the trans community, who himself has a transgender family member. Play that game. It's just as trending and relevant as the, wizarding one. Right now, as I said, I'm in an airport, and sorry for the terrible noise and weird cuts.
All right, so those are her arguments. I forget what else she talks about here, but I don't care. Here's the thing. This is absolutely nonsensical. So let's recap.
You were playing Fallacy Bingo. You might have a bingo by now, by the way.
This is nonsense. The only thing here is vibes. You must virtue signal, and allies must bend the knee because it is absolutely necessary to do this and be ineffective for reasons. Playing a different game ignores the point. By the way, Mordecai Apple, thank you so much for the $2.
Mm-hmm.
And the show relevant to this context is you're using a game that came out well before that was controversial, and that controversy is past. These are terrible arguments. It is all these dodging points. They're all just deflection because it's don't play the bad game, despite the fact that playing the bad game and weaponizing it against the turf creator and making her cry as a bunch of money on her game is used to help trans people. We can't do that. Fuck people's GoFundMes. Fuck the Trevor Project. Fuck mermaids. Let's just go. This is what the puritanical progressivist looks like. It's contradiction after contradiction. The use of cry bullying, the use of all of these things we just talked about. Go through this list. Conflation of offense versus harm. You're offended by this game. You haven't demonstrated the harm in anywhere here. Redemption is impossible or so hard not to do it. Man, that Keffel's tweet. Weaponization of selective identity politics. Duh. Moralistic hierarchy. Bend the knee. Listen to what we say, even though what we're doing is politically ineffective. So, with that said, let's look at some receipts of how people online took this. And you'll notice that I have some folders. And those folders are actual critiques of the game, Believe All Victims, Canoe. It says Conyer, but everyone calls him Canoe. Jessie Gender, Keffels and Vaush, we'll come back to that one later. More stupid fucking takes. And then some ones we'll get to a little bit later. So let's look at more stupid takes. So here's Alana McLaughlin, known MMA fighter and trans woman. If you feel personally bullied by the trans community for playing a transphobic slave owner simulator game, you deserve to be bullied. Give me your fucking lunch money, nerd. This is a god-awful argument.
Wow.
Seriously, though, voting for with your dollar is kind of capitalistic bullshit through boycotts. Is kind of capitalist bullshit, though boycotts can work. Not in this case, and we'll talk about that. I'm not hanging my hopes and dreams on solidarity from allies. Your allies can still play a video game. Calm yourselves. Play the racist game from the transphobic creator. I won't ask you not to. Just don't ask me to trust you. Weird flex, but go off. Still gonna mock you, though. Choke down some of that mediocre pickle brine chicken while you're at it. I don't know what that refers to, but it's silly. Next.
Wait.
What?
That's a weird mixing of racism and transphobia.
Yeah. Alejandro, I can't talk today. Alejandra Caraballo, based activist. Trans people are having their existence debated in such dehumanizing ways in state legislatures and the media, and yet cis people are more upset that they are convinced for asking not to support a stupid game. These have nothing to do with each other. This is a false equivocation.
Oh yeah, no, it's super racist.
These are the things we should be focusing on. The game doesn't matter. Why are we hyperfixating on asking people to bend the knee to this game when the reality is that these are the things we should be worrying about? We should be protesting and fighting these things. But because the game bothers you for some reason, because you are offended by the game, that takes center stage. Hogwarts Legacy feels like a small fish. This is Florence Ashley, based and also wrote a wonderful piece against ROGD, and among other things. Feels like a small fish when Republicans have declared open season on trans youth, yet I can't help but think if people won't even avoid a video game like they like in support of trans people, will they ever show up for more when asked? These are not related. People will stand up against a Holocaust even though they want to play the wizard game that's connected to their childhood. These are not related.
Mm-hmm.
You are making a slippery slope fallacy. And also, if you're thinking that, you're doing so emotionally. Little Twisty here, by the way, is a great one. This is a false equivalency on utmost high. Someone buying a video game makes them incapable to be able to support trans issues when it actually matters. Good Lord.
Yeah, playing a video game is not the same action as like canvassing or writing your representatives. Those are completely different actions.
Well, we're asking you to. I don't know if you have the right to do that. I actually think to some degree the argument would be is you might actually need to deal with people doing a thing. Scott Kelly Ernest, thank you so much for the membership. Also, Illa Divine, thanks so much for the tier 2 sub. This drama started by leftists directly shoved the game in the algorithm. It's a boring basic RPG. Now it's broken streaming records. Good job, everyone. We'll get to that. Random small streamer chick. Don't know who she is, but Jessie Earl retweeted her. Cis allies crying about your chat, turning on them when they play. Again, woman cried. This is not cool. Hogwarts Legacy needs to realize you're not the victims here. Man, I'm sorry. Did you think I hit you? I didn't really hit you. This is bad arguments.
Mm-hmm.
This is about our right to exist. F your anti-Semitic turf game. F what house you're in or what your wand is, and start caring about us in the real world. I can do both. I know you've dealt with harassment. I know you've dealt with a lot of stuff, but that doesn't mean it justifies other harassment.
Mm-hmm.
Melissa Hillman, let's go. So let me get this straight. Hogwarts Legacy is licensed from the Queen of Turf Island. Lead dev Troy Levitt was a gamergator and ran an anti-woke YouTube. He worked tirelessly to further JK's anti-Semitic goblin tropes. He hired Greg Women Lie About Sexual Assault Ellis. Okay. The game is bad. We get that. Ellis ruined his AAA Game Voice career by airing his reprehensible views, attacking devs, and making a cringe IP violation video, insisting in his character voice that his voice actor was being canceled. So anyone who hires him now is making a clear statement. Okay, I'm hearing you. JK publicly thanked Greg, Women Are Liars Ellis. Again, we know she's inconsistent in her views. She didn't give a shit about, Roe v. Wade, so whatever. Jesus, RuPaul, Christ, this game is a whole mess. When you're thanking Greg Ellis for the work he did for you, you're not even pretending your hate for trans people is about protecting women. For rich and powerful people, hypocrisy is a flex. Yeah, this is again, I like this one because it brings up some of the problems with the game, and these are all fair and true. But again, what is this? Again, this is just critiquing the game. There's a weird thing about, again, still calling out people. This is Pink Cat. This is a furry I follow. You are a transphobe for liking Harry Potter. Clearly you don't respect my existence as a person because you bought a game. Unironically true. But unironically, you actually don't respect trans people if you buy products based on the Turf and Sheaf IP in 2023. No ifs or buts. It's just what it means. This is essentialism and stupid. This is not how reasoning works. This is not how actually anything works. This is basically just saying, and again, we're going to talk about the hypocrisy of why the fixation on this game is so fucking weird. Now we're going to get into the one that's personal for me.
I've seen a few people call this tone policing, but TP doesn't mean the same argument. But tone policing doesn't mean the same argument is wrong. We are literally conflating people playing a fucking game or bending the knee with real harm. We are being killed, but let's focus on this and give it so much publicity. Y'all embarrassing.
So this is from a person who I was later told was a trans medicalist. Fair enough. I didn't know it at the time. They just happened to come in my feed. I don't know that claim is even true, by the way. But J.K. Rowling is a bad writer anyway. If you buy the game, you're transphobic. I'll spoil the game and ruin your existence. Why don't people support us? I don't like this idea, but it does bring up a thing of what we're going to start seeing is ally fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
Because allies getting bullied means that they're eventually going to have a harder time wanting to support. And you go, well, that just makes them monsters. They weren't allies to begin with. No, if you keep abusing someone, they're going to leave.
Yeah. Especially when they're bullied, they're going to be more afraid to act.
Next, go ahead and read that one.
Should I read the bottom first?
No, read this one. This is the second one. And then
go. Got it. Okay. The way this stupid fucking game has been used as a bench test of people's loyalty has done more to hurt the trans community than if we had just left it alone. You will not move me on this. We are literally dying is true, but it has nothing to do with this game.
And then this was Luxander.
I kind of feel like trans people in the UK who die on the wait list because people like Joanne are funding their politicians can see a direct connection between the two.
But she still has that money. She made it a decade or two ago. This is...
Well, and again, billionaires have all kinds of ways to keep their money going. All different offshore accounts. This is a thing that we know.
This really bothers me because I know Luxander does better, and this isn't like a deal breaker for me, but this conversation kind of I had to nope out of because this was hard. Here's the next part of it.
Not really related to the game. She already had that money. You don't beat a billionaire that way. And all our yelling did was backfire, make us look bad, and break sales records. Luxander says, I kind of feel like you're blaming trans people for the transphobic backlash here.
And then I said, ending the conversation,
that seems like a gross misrepresentation of my perspective here. You are welcome to go through my tweets and clarify my position, but I'm done talking about this on Twitter. You are, of course, welcome to talk to me in DMs or VC if you would like to hash this out.
Those were some of the bad takes. Let's look at some of the other bad takes real quick. These won't take long. We'll go through them quickly. Activists who are viewed as leaders within the community. Oh, this is related to the Keffels thing. We'll move on from it, but this felt really weird coming at Keffels. I don't know why everyone likes doing the whole Keffels is bad now. A bunch of like trans activists stopped following her, and like I really dislike the idea that like Keffels is great one moment when she's trying to get Cloudflare to dump kiwi farms, but now she's bad because she's just shitposting. Using a game that supports a transphobe to raise money for a trans charity is just scraps from the table. Citation needed. Don't use oppressors' tools to fight the oppressor. You're using that quote wrong again. Stop using that quote. You don't know what you're talking about. Play a trans creator for charity. That's not the same thing. That's a dodge. Cook a meal with your community. Not beg for scraps. Me. I love you, but I disagree heavily. Thousands of dollars aren't scraps to a charity, or liberal and liberal boycotts rarely work under global capitalism. Playing the game of the enemy and raising money for people she hates is poetic and good. Full stop. People shouldn't be abusive and awful in stream chats because of course, but I think it's notable in big news when it happens to be Mr. McAverage playing Harry Potter game, and just Tuesday when it happened to be marginalized folks for existing. 100%. Do not go out and harass streamers. This feels very disingenuous considering how people reacted. And again, she gets worse over time. We don't use the tools of the oppressor. Again, stop using that quote wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. However, this is this shit trans folks get daily for existing, not for our choice of the game that supports a hate economy. Again, I am sorry you got harassment. I'm sorry we all get harassment. But you are projecting that harassment onto this game when that is a bad target. It is a stupid target.
Well, and the thing that I keep noticing is that despite her saying don't go out and harass people, no, a lot of that still happened. A lot of her, when she keeps coming back to the topic and keeps making more videos and more shit and more shit and more shit, right, to address it, that really doesn't line up with the message, don't go out and harass these people. Right? And so, yes, I get that she's saying don't harass them, but her behavior isn't really demonstrating that.
But also, there's this constant tone here in a lot of these tweets about minimizing that, like that the harassment isn't as bad because these aren't marginalized people. But can I just make a statement? Harassment is bad. Can we all get behind that? Like, don't harass people?
Well, that and like, we don't, it's a weird place to put, we don't use the tools of the oppressor to dismantle oppression.
But you're using harassment.
Well, yeah, but also, in this case, I would find that assumes that, like, the person targeted, you know, like Hasan is the one doing the harassment by this logic. Like, that's still in the same paragraph talking about that. Right?
Yeah.
And that really didn't happen.
It continues to be endlessly frustrating, angry, and sadly, not surprising that people continue to argue with strawman versions of trans people filtered through those who hate us. Again, this is only a partial truth. There are people doing that, but there's also people trying to give very real reports of being treated like shit by probably a small margin of us and probably a lot of really vocal allies who are trying to, you know, virtue signal. Rather than actually listening to the nuances of what we have to say. I did listen to the nuances of what she said. And actually, I said as much here. I listened to the nuances. I followed the arguments. I still disagree. This line of reasoning is poor and ignores our points. It's the same line of reasoning RGR had with Kink at Pride. You're not listening to me. I just think you are wrong. I just think you're wrong and doing harm. RGR claimed over and over with Kink at Pride, you're not listening to me. You're not listening to me. Because that's the argument of a child. You're not listening to me because you're not agreeing with me. If you listen to me, you'd agree with me. But remember Vaush's debate with RGR? Vaush definitely listened to her and was disagreeing.
Well, and he was able to mirror back everything she was saying, right?
This is why this is so telling. This is why my sympathy is low for people saying they're bullied for playing a game. Bullying is wrong. Don't do it. But the but cancels that out. That's a negation conjunction. That's silly. One, most are just upset that they're being made to think about trans people. That's not true. Question their ethics. And two, trans people are getting Harry Potter death threats. You're getting them because this is just 4chan doing its thing. And again, you got a lot of these because you put out a video about JK right around the time that game came out. You knew that was going to be an outcome. It doesn't justify it, but nor does it justify it going around. And this idea that the bullying is somehow minimized because you said so is really gaslighty.
People will lash out at the marginalized for bullying them, i.e., fairly critiquing them, for making them face that they contribute dissonance, that they may contribute to a system that harms marginalized people because they don't ever wish to see themselves as bad.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, there is so much wrong with this. Well, one, we don't believe in ontological bad. People are multifaceted. They have more going on with them than just a simple, this person's bad. Right? And in a lot of ways, that kind of gives up ground because it's like, well, if you're bad, then how could you do anything else, right? Mm-hmm. People will lash out at the marginalized for bullying them, i.e. fairly critiquing them. When we're dealing with the internet and hundreds of thousands of people, no, critique doesn't always mean critique anymore.
Remember, the idea that accountability is synonymous with abuse in regards to the puritanical progressivist. Abuse is synonymous with accountability. We want you to be held accountable, i.e., every snowflake gets to claim that they are not in any way, and I'm using snowflake in the proper term, not snowflake in the conservative way, but every snowflake gets to claim they're not responsible for the avalanche.
Hey guys, so what happens if the only thing that you hear from your parents, for example, is how you did something wrong? You do your chores and they only ever tell you when you messed up. That's it. That's all you hear. No, you lose your mind real fast. You lose self-confidence. It starts to feel like bullying. Because it is. Critiquing isn't just negative. There's negative and positive. Okay? Even in teaching spaces, when I deal with this, okay, there's the Oreo method, right? You start out with something positive, you put a critique in the center, and then you end with something positive. So we don't get people feeling so bad about themselves that they don't want to keep trying.
Yeah. Also, I want to make a note. Felix, in chat, you said, I think Jessie isn't as saying that people are bad as much as they don't want to be confronted with the idea that they're bad. See, here's my thing. I get that makes sense to you from there, but the problem is I disagree with the inherent premise. It ignores the idea that the person may disagree with the idea that they're bad in the first place. It's not that they're being confronted with it, because when you say confronted with that idea, there's a way that it sort of gives off the implicit notion that that's the ontological truth, and it's not. Oh, and by the way, just for a note, last video, I'm done with JKR.
Oh, look at more videos. Oh, yeah.
Let's see. What else I got? We got some Canoe. Got some cute ones by Canoe. We'll come back to believe all victims in a little bit. Worth noting that the right is actively magnifying so-called bullying people are receiving for playing Hogwarts Legacy. I mean, yeah, they did. And in some ways, they kind of got one on us in this regard because we kind of did some of this in an attempt to smear all trans people as unreasonable normies. Try not to play into that. I really don't want to, but I saw a lot of shit. As a trans person, I personally don't care if you play it or not. Boycotts rarely work. But I appreciate people not playing in solidarity with trans people like I am. There's a difference between transphobic people who play the game and normies who grew up with Harry Potter and wanting to be a wizard for a little. I support people who choose not to play the game. If you do play it, I hope at least you understand where trans people are coming from. The attack trans people face are magnitudes more extreme than anyone playing this game will ever see. We are being legislated out of existence. All you had to say was this. Based Canoe. This is all that had to be said and you could have dropped it.
Again, consume media with a critical mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like what you like, but consume it with a critical mind.
And then we get into the believe all victims. So we'll talk about this more later, but there's a couple game developers who got some shit. There's also there's a creator online that got a lot of shit for this because she said, hey, harassment is bad, MK. We're also going to talk about briefly what happened on Mastodon. But we're going to hold off on that because we got to talk about Keffel's and Vaush's takes. But rather than go over that in that format, we're going to give our voices a break, and I'm going to get some water, and you guys get to hear it from the horse's mouth.
Okay, so as always, everyone on the left is bad, and I'm smart and big brain, and also just so incredibly handsome, and also well-proportioned, and also just Jesus Christ. Hogwarts Legacy breaks Twitch record amid streamer boycott. Okay, so apparently right now there's a big controversy. Okay, so Hogwarts Legacy is a Harry Potter game, which is embarrassing in and of itself.
Oh, you Justin.
Thanks.
But moreover, there's been this massive effort to boycott the game from left-leaning people, which seems to have had the exact opposite effect, going so far as to like bully streamers or whatever. Now, I think like Hasan wanted to stream Hogwarts Legacy and give the proceeds of a fundraiser to a trans charity, but people bullied him out of it or whatever. You guys are idiots. You're so stupid. I hate you guys. Guys, of course Hogwarts Legacy would do really well. You've spent every day of the past several months tweeting about it, telling everyone else to not buy it. Boycotts don't work, you idiot. They never have. The only time boycotts ever work on a systemic level is with highly individualized, localized, targeted boycotts, like say the bus boycotts back during the civil rights movement. The idea of boycotting a gigantic internationally released game, all that does is create a bunch of discourse and infighting between people who want to buy the game but feel bad about the J.K. Rowling thing and hate the game but are still going to play it anyway for funsies and don't want to buy the game at all. They're all going to fight with each other and create constant discourse. A person who bought the game and spent $60 that went directly to J.K. Rowling's trans people fund did less harm than people who were like, if you're streaming Hogwarts Legacy, then kill yourself. They did less harm. $60 is less harm than the free advertising you gave the game by turning this into a right-wing culture war issue. God. Cavils tweeted about this. Really embarrassing that people decided to bully Hasan into not streaming the Wizard game for charity when the material harm from playing the game is practically nil, and there is now no money being raised for trans people who desperately need it. And then I tweeted with my giant brain, the left's hyperfixation on boycotting this one specific bad product has drawn an enormous amount of attention to it. I don't think they understand that, quote, massive leftist streamer bullied out of playing Hogwarts Legacy, end quote, is great advertisement / right-wing culture war bait. And then I followed it up with, could have just let some people gun through it, make fun of it the whole time to a chat full of people insulting JKR, then donate $100K to a trans charity. But no, this completely ineffective boycott is so important. End tweet. Okay, it's because a lot of people, again, as always, treat all of this like left politics bullshit as purity testing and not as actual effective engagement. The result of this is now, once again, that lefties have given literal like millions of dollars of free advertisement and culture war like advertisement bait for no reason at all over a method of social organizing that is historically completely ineffective for no reason. Thank you. You're all so smart. It's all my own subreddit's been talking about too. It's such a big discourse. I've said this before. If you don't want to buy the game, fine. If you want to buy the game, fine. If you're going to buy the game and you're going to stream it publicly, you could do your due diligence and make fun of J.K. Rowling and say that she's a dumb bitch while playing it, okay? That seems fair. That seems reasonable. But like, oh my God. Stop with this, like what harm? What harm would be done by playing it, making fun of it, and then donating the proceeds? Let's find out who's responding to Keffels. What's the material gain from playing it? Missing the point. Can't he just play another game? See, they can't help themselves. Faced with the objective fact that their boycott failed and there's now a ton of free advertisement around the Harry Potter game based on their decision-making, they can't get it. They can't reconcile the idea that their behavior is the problem here. You should stream it? No, I'm not going to play it because I don't like Harry Potter. But if I did like Harry Potter, I would play it unashamedly because I don't care. I would make fun of it the entire time. He can always donate to trans people like me directly. I sure could use some help. Big brain take here. Never mind the extremely ineffective boycott attempts that led to a bunch of free advertising. If Hasan was really a good ally, he would donate to my PayPal or GoFundMe or whatever. Pretty confident he could raise funds for trans causes while playing other games with zero flack. Dude, how funny would it be if the Hogwarts Legacy got a bunch of viewers on Twitch and most of the people playing it were just making fun of J.K. Rowling and raising money for trans charities? Not to mention the controversy around the Hogwarts game would allow you to fundraise for far more than any other game you could play. I bet you Hasan could have broken 1 million on it. Easily. But they have no idea because none of this has to do with actual material harm. All of this has to do with like purity testing. It's weird. I have 2 questions. Isn't streaming the game a form of promotion and will convince tons of people in his audience to buy it? You moron. You simpleton. You troglodyte. You follow me? Unfollow me. Doom metal enthusiast. You. No. Watching a streamer play a game does the opposite. It would mean a ton of lefties in his community would see him play it and make fun of it. He would make money for trans people off of like mocking the game. He's no longer raising money for trans people. Like, can he still do that while playing a different game? Well, the thing in Turkey and Syria happened, but if he was going to do the thing with Hogwarts Legacy, he probably would have done the donations for trans people as well. I'm sure there's no other game he could play to raise money. Oh no, what will the world do? See how all of them are failing to engage with the actual premise of the tweet? They don't really care. Yeah, they don't really care. Hold on. I saw one of these people reply to me and it was so indicative. I am looking at my own tweets on stream. I will make a YouTube video of my own tweets. I don't care. Where was my thing? Where was the thing? I need to see it. You've lost horse privileges. Okay, but why are we making Hogwarts Legacy the hill to die anyway? All you had to do was not buy the Wizard game. There's no discourse. No, you buffoon. You f***ing fool. You created the discourse with the insane boycott insistency. That was you. You did this. Where was the tweet? It was like, was it a quote tweet? It was a quote tweet. There was one quote tweet and I need to find it because it's so indicative. I need to find it. It's essential to me that I find it. The one quote tweet. Find me the one quote tweet. Where is it? Where is it? All right, I'm focusing on this one tweet with 2 likes. One guy, 2 likes. To Vaush, almost everything seems an intellectual exercise in maximizing results from effort. Rarely does he ever get directly impacted by most things he speaks on, though. I'm a little surprised at this view, though. If the trans community managed to impact this game's sales or make it evident, this person's criticism of me, it seems...
I'm going to back up 5 minutes. I have just 5 seconds. I need you to hear that tweet again, because it's fucking insane.
Almost everything seems an intellectual exercise in maximizing results from effort. Rarely does he ever get directly impacted by most things he speaks on, though. I'm a little surprised at this view, though. If the trans community managed to impact this game's sales or make it evident, this person's criticism of me, it seems, is that I care about the results of my actions. This one guy, I couldn't believe it when I saw this quote tweet. I couldn't believe it. This one guy. This is it. This is every tweet. We don't need any other tweets. This is the point right here. They don't care about maximizing positive results from your behavior. They don't care about any like consequence of the actions that you have. All they care about is like the innate moral puritanism behind the decision to consume or not consume a product in a world that is fucking ubiquitously filled with products that are made through unethical systems or like that benefit people who do terrible shit. It's so frustrating, man. All trans people have done have hurt themselves. You've all hurt yourself here. You stupid... Well, I shouldn't say trans people because in reality, a ton of this is non-trans people who are just being really annoying on behalf of trans people.
So yeah. And with that, we're going to go in the next section, which is going to be outcomes. Are you guys following the arguments so far? Is this making sense? I worked on this for like an entire 4 or 5 days, so not to mention the progressive of this list took fucking forever. Is this clicking? Is this making sense? I know this is a long fucking stream, and I know we're covering one goddamn topic over one stupid fucking game, but this happened because we made it happen. Because no one, including myself, could shut the fuck up about it. We played right into them, and if every time they want to call us hysterical, they can point at this and laugh. I'm sorry. I know it hurts. I know it sucks, but I'm trying to make it clear. This is the point. The point of this channel is to make the left better, to make it healthier. The reactions of this were not good. To me, this idea that couldn't they just not play this game? If you're talking about your average Joe, sure. If they do, I don't care. But when we get to the outcomes and analysis of this, no. Prickly Dario, don't skip ahead. You do not fucking spoil. Bad Prickly Dario. This is the issue. When you create this much buzz around something, including trying to suppress it, there are things that come about from it. We're going to be getting into a lot of this, and I really need you guys to understand it. This could have been prevented with proper organization. The left could have set up charity after charity in multiple different communities to raise money for trans people. Imagine being a trans person, and because of J.K. Rowling's stupid fucking game, 20 grand gets dumped into your GoFundMe. No, and there is a level to which, Phelanix, I agree with you. There is a level to which we also need to talk about the way internet works with this, and that might be a future segment. But there's a way in which, no, really, I got accused several times of only going after people that were, disagreeing with me. And I want to be super clear. Literally what happened is that's all I kept seeing. I tried to look elsewhere for people that agreed with me. I couldn't find a fucking one. The Twitter algorithm was literally setting up gladiatorial fights. Oh no, this will happen again, because it happened several times to conservatives. Again, Prickly Dario is not allowed to spoil, but we're going to be talking about it. All right, so the next section we're going to get into for this is some of the Twitter and Mastodon effects, and some of this how it connects back to the puritanical progressivist. So some of this is pretty obvious. Even in just seeing these videos, we have seen all of this come through. Cry bully. We're allowed to do what we want because we're victims. Totalitarian tendencies. You must listen. There is no other thing. Canceling. I mean, fuck. I don't know why Keffel's tweet was in that video. Other than this just goes along with canceling. It's the same thing that happened with Contra. Oh, Kruva, thank you so much for the tier 2 sub. Thank you too for covering this. It's sad to see everything go sideways, but it helps a lot to see it so clearly explained. Oh, I'm glad. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
And we can talk about sometime about the Keffel's cancellation, because that had a lot of nonsense to it too. And we don't even use slurs. We don't use them in our daily life or what we do. But also it did seem really reactionary and strange, the way people were reacting.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Conflation of offense versus harm. No one can show me on the dollar where this game has hurt you. If you find this transphobic, fair enough. Don't play it. If you don't want to give Warner Brothers and by extension her money, don't fucking do it. But to say that the game itself does harm is really weird.
This is where we're
Arachnoid, go tonight.
Is this where we're bringing up our examples?
Have a good night. I can talk
Or are
tonight.
we just going through these real fast?
I'm just going through these and showing how these work, and then we'll come back to them again.
Yeah.
Redemption is impossible hard. Again, the Keffel stuff stands out to me, but also the kind of weird talk around Hasan. Weaponization of selective identity politics. Again, this just comes off. There's so many examples of this, both online and otherwise. It also comes off as like, again, because we're a marginalized group, we only know what abuse is. The things that you're going through and the way you're being harassed doesn't equal that. It's really weird. And of course, the girl, and this of course stands out. We didn't talk about this one, but tone policing, right? Reclamation is subjective. That talks about the Keffel stuff. But part of it's also the tone policing thing is really important. This girl cried on stream because she was getting harassed, but no one will show anyone what the harassment looks like. So we just assume that it's fake? What? Like, that feels very tone policing. That feels very much like, oh, well, your pain doesn't matter. What? Moralistic hierarchy, again. Listen to trans people, must forever bend the knee. And disagreement means you're ontologically evil. If you play this game, you cease retaining your hominid status. In-group, out-group, duh. Purity culture, holy shit, duh. I like pancakes, so you hate waffles. I will show you more examples of that. Lack of actual interest in developing leftism as a political movement. Again, social clickover movement. This is literally what it is. You should listen to us and follow this thing rather than do what's going to be more politically advantageous. And again, this isn't even like a question of opinion of politics or tactics. This is just the objective truth. We handed a W to our enemies by basically just freaking out. So we come back here and we want to bring up some of the ways in which this made Twitter and Mastodon fucking toxic. You'll notice I have right here a folder called Believe All Victims. Let's go. If anyone follows Annie Gall on Twitter, she's fucking amazing. Notice how one of the most common criticisms against streamers playing Hogwarts Legacy is that they could be promoting games by trans people. One of them is to boycott an indie game made by a team of trans people because one of them played Wizard game. Yeah. So if you look here, this is by Thor, the person who created Heartbound. One of the two many people that helped create Heartbound. Hello. So this week I played Hogwarts Legacy. Some of you have voiced grievances over this game. Some of you have really enjoyed the playthrough. Right now I am getting hate messages from both sides of the internet. Some trans people and allies are claiming that I hate trans people or I'm anti-Semitic. Some people are claiming I am pushing the trans rights, and that is disgusting. This has spiraled out to attempting to cancel on Twitter. It also turned into negative reviews on Heartbound. Because I played a game, I don't support the hateful messages. I made this more than clear on stream. Let me be very clear with you. Shane is trans. Sijin, I'm pronouncing that right, is they, them. They are insanely important people to me. The idea that anyone would step in here and make those claims is dog shit, end of. If you actually think that I'm anti-trans, then leave. If you think this is a community for bigots or hate, then leave. I'll have none of it. Again, when people are like, oh, well, it's just harassment, they're just whining. God, that sounds gaslighty.
Yep.
Here's Hasan. Every day there's new trans legislation being written to basically eliminate trans people from the existence in the US. Y'all are talking about a video game that I'm not even playing. Recognize that this is about engagement on Twitter, a feeling of helplessness and nothing else. This is objectively true.
Oh no, it's a massive feels-based reaction.
Again, based Hasan. Again, his Ukraine takes, sucky. This, fantastic. Go ahead, quadruple down on the quote tweets. It ain't changing shit. I'm not going to stop advocating for trans issues, but maybe you can get your first your 1K retweets, and that'll help you feel better, because life is going to keep sucking. Keffels, never back down. You will never please them, no matter what you do. Liana Kersner, this is a person with a YouTube channel. If you initiate a conflict, you don't then get to call yourself a victim. You were the aggressor. People have the right to express their views. If you attack them, don't expect them to just roll over and take it. Caitlin Burns, well-known MSNBC reporter and trans woman. Trans people didn't initiate the conflict. Okay, this is a very blanket statement. Caitlin, you're smarter than this. Liana, where did I say trans people? The statement applies to everyone. The subtext is clear based on your rants lately. We weren't born yesterday. So Liana actually went on a big thing about like not wanting harassment at all, and this is the result. Like, this is a objectively true statement. You could say it's a dog whistle, I suppose, but I don't get that read from her. I actually talked to her in DMs because I actually really appreciated her as an ally, not backing down on being an ally, but also not taking shit. And again, Caitlyn right here, this is just projection. Trans people didn't initiate the conflict. I mean, no, we didn't on the large scale, but there have been many people that have initiated this on, on other scales. We just saw an example. Holy shit. Here's another one by Liana. Think about this. You're now saying ruining people's fun, swarming, harassing, malicious spoilers, etc. is fair game. What do you think happens to the next trans-friendly game that comes out? It's going to blast back at you tenfold. This is why I'm saying these behaviors are wrong. This is objectively true. This is why we create lines in the sand. So next time a vulnerable person gets preyed on because a game made them happy and they're in a fragile place and something bad happens, do you want that? No? Then cut the shit now. Bad tactics exist. No. Spoilers, I think spoilers, again, we need to have better behavior than this. I disagree, Heavy Punk. I think the spoilers thing is absolutely nonsense. This isn't fucking the 6th book. It's just shitty and mean.
Well, yeah, and if people are doing this with the intention of fucking people over, like, what does that say?
Yeah.
That's still the intention of fucking people over.
Katie the Proto says, so this seems like a lot of gatekeeping, and this game is the ultimate. You are being called out for not harassed because you played a game we said not to. Yeah. I don't think it's shitty or mean. I think it's soy as fuck. Fair. This is her calling out the Caitlyn Burns thing, and again, rightly so. Hey, a journalist with MSNBC claiming without evidence, only assuming subtext, what my intents were. I got dogpiled by J.K. Rowling's flying monkeys. I'm worried about the backlash here. The next time when journalists behave this way, it's a problem. I agree, because again, that was an utterly projective tweet. Instead of ratioing me, please donate to the Trevor Project, Mermaids, or other trans charities of your choice. Or check in with a friend to make sure they're doing okay, because I don't care if you hate me as long as you're kind to trans people. Based ally. This gets into a story that ZZ can tell better. Do you want to talk about this? Because we have the 3 tweets and we have some of the links for it.
Yeah, or you can help me set some of it up too.
Here's the setup. There's a Mastodon instance called mastodon.lol.
It is probably it's a massive
14K users, and it is run by a person named Nathan. Nathan is an anti-Nazi, anti-fascist, anti-transphobe individual.
The whole instance basically, runs on the premise of no Nazis, no TERFs.
This is what he posted in regards to the game.
We're not banning people for buying a video game. Express your displeasure to them if you so wish, but that alone doesn't require our attention. Related, please don't post spoilers just to spite people. You can justify it to yourself however you like, but you're shouting into a crowd here. Not every HP fan knows J.K. Rowling is a piece of shit, and ruining the days of random bystanders ain't the way to go. It will cause problems for myself and Mastodon.lol in general if it continues. Thanks.
So this got really heavily attacked. Incredibly so. This got
massively attacked.
People going so far as projecting and saying this lol here was like him being somehow
they took it as an expression of lol, of laughing,
rather than the name .lol.
Yeah.
So after a number, I want to say in the dozens, if not hundreds of people went after this one person who runs this server, he of course got triggered and said some dumb shit. This is not justifiable. Hiding the lol with the camera. Fair enough. Well, let me go back then.
Oh, okay.
There we go. See, .lol. This is not acceptable, but I am understanding that in some ways, people get triggered and they say dumb shit. I'm not justifying it. I'm just explaining it. And this was the result. Mastodon.lol will shut down on May 9th, 2023, 3 months from today. Information on how to migrate to a different server is here. I'm not doing this anymore. It's not worth it. Personal attacks calling me of all people a Nazi, a TERF, an anti-Semite. Congratulations on destroying something I cared so deeply about. I hope you're happy. One last message before anyone tries to further assassinate my character. Fuck Nazis, fuck TERFs, J.K. Rowling can roadblocks in a fire for all I care.
So I gotta be honest, this at least also isn't just a US-based, it's not even US-based instance. It's in one of the tiny countries in Europe, right? And so no, we do have a lot of issues with people all over the place assuming shit that everyone knows when really that's not the case. So yeah, do a lot of people know that Rowling's, a TERF and crappy? Yes, they do. But that still doesn't mean that we don't have to interact with other people outside of this instance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so this was actually my favorite instance. This is where my account lived.
And this personally fucked Zena.
Oh, yeah. I don't get to enjoy my account anymore because this is like the place that I always felt like safe because I knew that I could always count on Nathan and their mod team to always take care of stuff. Right? Like the fuck Nazis and fuck TERFs. No, they're serious. There is a Nazi problem that can be on Mastodon because Nazis love to come and try and invade spaces and all the rest of us are like, fuck off. And the worst part is like I've never known like Nathan to get involved in petty drama, right? There were some issues a while back with like a couple of other trans-focused Mastodon servers fighting with each other, and there's usually all sorts of like issues and people have disagreements about things in the trans community, especially because we're not a monolith. And I've never really known Nathan to get involved in that. So I'm not surprised that he isn't here, especially with how many thousands of people are on here. It doesn't make sense to suddenly pick a side. Yeah. But this is somebody who's always been protecting people and always providing a space that has tons of trans people on it. Tons and tons of trans people who still got so much shit and harassment.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if he describes himself as a lefty, but no. His values are super lefty. They absolutely are. And he's always acted in that way. So it sucks because now we've lost, like, a really valuable space.
Yep. Not to mention how toxic Twitter got. You've seen this from the things.
Mm-hmm.
This is from...
Oh, also, this one, though, not on the Mastodon.lo, I love finding all the narratives changing where people are like, oh, he couldn't take the critique. He didn't listen to people. What?
It's the same shit we talked about with the puritanical progressivist again. It's the, you didn't listen to people. You're not following what we want. You're not following the id poll. Like, it basically is just
well, then, like,
everything on the list being used to tear down other people. And this includes allies. And again, if you don't think ally fatigue is a thing, especially when the people you're trying to help are lashing out at you. And I know you're like going to say, oh, that's patronizing. No, it's basic human fucking decency.
Well, and it's like the Lindsay Ellis thing, right? With Ride the Last Dragon. People told her to listen to marginalized people.
And then she did, and not all of them agreed.
Right, and it's the same thing here. Like, there are definitely mixed messages, amongst the community.
So, moving on. This is from, this is a little known streamer. You should go sub to her channel, Sage Alexis. I know her. Been edged by her twice. Anyway, I'm done discoursing about the Wizard game. I'll give my full thoughts on the stream this weekend, either Saturday or Sunday, scheduled to be determined. And I fully accept not everyone will be happy with my feelings or agree with me. That's fine, but I'm done losing friends or acquaintances over this stupid thing. This is actually a thing that's happened. So, where is it? Quit resizing shit. So, is this... Where's the one I'm looking for?
That's Zelzar?
Oh, yes. This is from Zalzar. I believe this is the person I think the game, it's either a game or it's a stream. I'm not entirely sure, but it's called The Color of Magic. I've gotten several disturbing private messages about how messed up I am for playing this game and how I should kill myself, etc. And that's not okay at all. JK has no part in the creation of this game, and we should instead celebrate this game and its achievements to really distance itself from her disgusting beliefs. It's trying to be inclusive as possible, both in terms of representation and character customization in the game. The game is a stunning achievement in that way, and all the people involved in making this game deserve recognition and applause for their hard work. I agree to disagree, but not bad. There are people with disturbing beliefs in most companies. Food, music, games, we'll get to this later, furniture, movies, etc. Should we boycott most of the products around us because of that? I mean, in an ideal world, yes, but the problem is you can't, because everything is unethical. There are better ways to stand up for equality and gender rights instead of hurting the masses because of a few people. Even if JK gets a small part of this game's earnings, it's because of a game that celebrates inclusivity, gender justice, and freedom of expression, and that's a good thing. Boycotting this game won't hurt JK in any way, but all the people who made this game will suffer. There are many other ways to stand up against transphobia, true, than vilify creators, developers, and gamers that will only just hurt ourselves, which it did. It hurt itself in confusion. Mm-hmm. Death threats and encouraging suicide is not okay, which people were doing. That takes us into the final leg of this. We've talked about how this connects back to the list. We talked about how Twitter and Mastodon went toxic. Let's talk about what actually happened with this. So first, we failed. Hogwarts Legacy breaks records of official release despite controversy. Oh, it's a Pratchett reference. Okay, fair enough. I misunderstood.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Even more based. I love everything I've heard about Pratchett. I love. Not only did it do super well, charted record-breaking PC release and was #1 on Twitch. So here's the argument. This is what we've been getting to the whole time. So first, in the course of the leading up months, this becomes a further culture war issue. Puritanical progressivists, the most loudest of us and the most irritating, draw lines in the sand. If you play this game, you're a bad person, yada yada. Because more noise gets done and more people get roped in social-wise, then it goes into a weird effect. There's a really weird thing that happens. And there's a video that covers this, and we're going to talk about it real quick. So let's watch a little clip from a little-known streamer or YouTuber by the name of HBomberGuy.
In a very strange place, and it technically happened by accident. Keurig. Is it Keurig or is it Keurig? Keurig? It's fine. Look, I already recorded this bit, so if I pronounce it wrong, whatever. In late 2017, when American talk show host Sean Hannity came to the defense of Roy Moore,
everyone would agree. Everybody. A 32-year-old man pursuing a 14-year-old girl is disgusting. That is something we should all agree on. This should transcend politics. However,
Media Matters president Angelo Caruso, wait, what if it's pronounced Carusoni? Oh, I should have checked. Among others, asked coffee machine company Keurig to reconsider sponsoring Hannity's show, and Keurig responded by tweeting that they were pulling their advertising. At least 4 other companies pulled advertising from Hannity's show for supporting Moore, but Keurig visibly tweeting about doing it, and it getting a very large and vocal response and support for having done it, caused a lot of sudden reactions. In one corner of the internet, people were suddenly thinking about buying a Keurig coffee machine. I mean, they made a stand. In a very minor way. In another corner, marketing people, ad people whose job is to see what causes this kind of splash, started watching closely and taking notes. And in the saddest corner, Hannity fans went berserk. Yeah, that'll show them. This video published on the 12th of November, one day after Keurig's tweet of self-appointed red pill aficionado Angelo John Gage destroying his Keurig coffee machine and making a huge mess of his garage in his pajamas. But don't worry, he's wearing socks with his flip-flops, so he's protected. Has a shit ton of likes and retweets and sparked hashtag boycott Keurig, a sort of pseudo-protest movement where right-wing people are shocked and upset that a company wouldn't give money to someone they watch to sell them something they already own, destroy their expensive functioning coffee machines they bought to spite the company for this horrendous slight. This, internally for Keurig, was initially thought of as a terrible accident. All these angry people harassing Keurig employees and even the brief, though ultimately insignificant, stink of a boycott. But, secretly, everyone was looking at how much attention Keurig was getting. You know what shows up a lot when there's a big hashtag about boycotting Keurig going around for days? The word Keurig. The story about what Keurig did and how people feel about it. And it turns out that this is very similar to marketing. Some people want to support Keurig for the nice thing they did. I mean, they took a stand by pulling some ads from one TV show for a while. And then there's the people who suddenly realized that they could do with a coffee machine.
No, Fesh, that's true. Someone literally bought a collector's edition of Hogwarts Legacy and then did this. I also saw a tweet of somebody going, hey, you shouldn't buy this if you do, you're a terrible person. And then that person subsequently went out and bought it.
Since everyone's talking about them lately. And then there's the flip side of almost every boycott, which is the people who destroyed the thing that they own, realizing that they quite liked it. And hey, no one's really paying attention to whether or not I obey this boycott or not. So maybe I'll just get another one. It doesn't really make a big difference. And then, of course, there's the simple fact that people don't tend to go on with boycotts for very long. It happens.
I hate to break it to you, but if you ever destroyed something that you own as part of a protest against a company's actions, statistically, you bought another one. And then you bought an extra one for one of your 2.14 kids. Probably Kevin. He gets all the nice things, doesn't he? What's wrong with me, mother? Don't you love me anymore?
Sure, it's hilarious. These people are deeply foolish, and it's good on some level that sometimes advertisers don't support purveyors of a garbage ideology. But on the serious side, the analysts watching and waiting in the background learned an interesting lesson. All of this is a gold mine. It's more than a commercial. It's a real commercial. That's my word, I just coined it, attribute it to me, put it in the dictionary. When you're the focus of a discussion online, when you're a hashtag millions can click on and check out, when you are the conversation for a brief moment that everyone feels expected to think about and have a take, not even an ad block can hide you. Not even someone who doesn't watch TV can miss your message. The exposure was massive, and it was effectively free. And I'm sorry, I just need to stop for a second to acknowledge how hilarious it is that the guy couldn't frame it properly with his vertical phone video, so it keeps falling out of the fucking frame. Oh, Jesus. When I saw this, I told myself, the next time something like this happens, it won't be an accident. Nike. For those of you who aren't aware,
Then he goes on to talk about the Colin Kaepernick thing where Nike had him in a commercial and then people subsequently burned their Nikes. So, according to H-Bomb's video, I think it's the last video we got, by the way, became free advertising. We whinged and yelled and screamed about how bad this game was. This game was going to be the end of the world.
And it got people more interested. Also, we see this in politics, too. Because people really do remember all of the attention and badness about a candidate that you throw out there, too. They really, really do.
Yeah, no, Fesh is right. Jessie Gender was confronted with this argument and literally called this argument neoliberal because she doesn't understand what words mean. Suddenly there's a giant stink about this game with tons of free advertising. Some people who are against trans people will go, hey, you know what? I'm gonna get this game because fuck the libs. But then there are some people who are normies and are like, man, what's this big thing about this game? Maybe I should pick it up. And you get what's called the Streisand effect. The Streisand effect is the way in which the attempts to hide, remove, or censor information, or tell people not to play a game, can lead to unintended consequences and increasing awareness of that information. It's named after American singer and actress Barbra Streisand, who attempted to suppress the California Coastal Record Project photographs of her cliffs top Malibu residence, taken to document California's coastal erosion, inadvertently drew a greater attention to the photograph in 2003. Attempts to suppress information are often made through cease and desist letters, but instead of being suppressed, the information received extensive publicity. This led to the Streisand effect, where normies started picking up this game, right-leaning people start talking about this game to talk shit about people, and it creates a fucking, literally a fucking positive feedback loop. Do you see this?
Mm-hmm. Jessie Gender's thing about don't use the tools of the master is a bit ironic.
Man, we just use the tools of the master, guys.
Did you know who else loves banning things? Conservatives and fascists.
Guys, holy shit. God, they just used the tools of the master. They literally did the woke brands thing, but in reverse.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like, and I'm just going to say this, it's almost like we fucked up. So this leads to allies are harassed by lefties. We just showed that off. Both trans people and allies do this. And again, this is not to condemn trans people or our allies, but it's the fact that we turned into a fucking mob and yelled and screeched about this. I saw trans people say, I'm fine with this, I'm going to buy the game. And people would unfollow or treat them like shit over their choice as a consumer when they're trans. And I'm not just talking about shitty streamers like fucking, God, give me the name of a shitty trans streamer. One of those ladies that's clearly up Destiny's ass.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Tofta. Yeah, so, yeah, it's not like it's that chick or the Rose, the one, what's the Rose or whatever fucking name is. RGR is acceptable. It's not like these people were just the ones doing this. This was everyone. Rose of Dawn, Rose Mullet. That's who I was thinking of. Thank you. Rose Mullet. Thank you. Lefties pretend they do no wrong because they're defending a marginalized group, which goes under, by the way, the allies harass thing. Mm-hmm. Puritanical progressivists number 8 and number 9 and number 10. Those are in-group, out-group, purity culture, I like pancakes so you hate waffles. Lefties pretend they do nothing wrong, which goes against 2, 3, 7, 11. Totalitarian tendencies. Canceling. moralistic hierarchy, and social cliques over progressive or political movement. Act as an aggressor, pretend to be the victim and the ally of the victim. Again, we didn't start this. I mean, no, but also, oh yeah, Polly Pocket is the queen of this. Again, cry bully. Massive sales. The outcome of this is record sales, especially on PC, #1 on Twitch. And again, the game itself, other than being problematic, which tons of things are,
yep,
does no real systemic harm in and of itself. It's just hated for vibes. It's literally fucking number 4. It's just conflation of offense versus harm. So 1, this proves that objectively, the puritanical progressivist list, though might need a new name because it's really hard to say.
PPs.
The PP list is, by definition, accurate. We can use this to look at these phenomenon and understand them. And I believe these people are the ones that started this fucking snowball rolling down the hill, and it turned into this clusterfuck that turned Twitter into a hellscape and Mastodon into a hellscape for a week. Friends after friends turning against each other, people lying, people lying and saying they were going to buy it and then doing so, people doing all sorts of crazy shit. And it turned one of the people that I respected within the online left, namely Jessie Gender, and now I have to question anything I knew because she put out some of the most fallacious arguments humanly possible and got more and more aggressive because she conflated the abuse she got over her first JK video with this situation. So let's look at the arguments.
All right, so now these are a lot of our personal arguments.
Well, these are arguments of what have been said, and these are our rebuttals.
Oh, yes, sorry. That's exactly where we're at. Brain is still a little out of it here. All right, go ahead and lead us, Kisses, and I'll kind of fill in, okay?
Sure, please. We'll both respond to these. I just have little notes here.
Yeah.
First argument that we heard that was nonsense. Just playing it is wrong. That is a weirdly evangelical thing. That's like, did you touch a pee-pee? Not a puritanical progressivist, like the penis. Like, this is the thing that dudes do in their head when they're like, my girlfriend has had other dicks inside of her. It must mean that she's somehow tainted and destroyed and violated because dicks have magic. They only taint and destroy. Like, this is the shit these people do.
Buck Syndicate, we're getting there. Don't worry.
I've seen some weird framings from people who know better on this argument. Yeah, no, it's... So our question is, how? Please demonstrate. Because this sounds like a number 9. This sounds like purity culture. One drop of flaw is enough to condemn someone.
Well, and at a certain point, that was the answer that we started getting from people. Once we dug through all the Maloo and all the stuff that people were saying, no, they really did just start saying, well, it's the principle of the thing. It's the principle. And I'm like, okay, but I have different principles and values. Thank you very much.
And again, if I was an ally, the actual, notion that me playing some fucking video game in any way, shape, or form challenges my actual advocacy is absurd.
Think of how many books in school you've read that are real messed up.
I am against imperialism, but you played Call of Duty.
No, there's a lot of... We all consume media that is problematic all the time. We can't just label this one as any different just because we feel like it. I mean, you could. That's what people did. They just went, I feel like this, so here it is. It's true.
Next argument. People playing it are or will become transphobic or anti-Semitic. This is PP number 8, 9, and 10. Those are in-group versus out-group, purity culture, and I like pancakes so you hate waffles. So, again, this is just essentialist thinking. Name scenario how this could not be the case. We could come up with a billion. I'll come up with one right now. If you were a parent who was in love with Harry Potter but hates J.K. Rowling, and you had a kid who wanted to believe in magic and shit like that, you could sit down with them and play this game with them or watch the movies and still not agree with her god-awful ideology. Oh, we'll get to that, little Morphite Annie. Don't fucking bet we won't. Again, people do not become mass murderers from shooter games. You do not necessarily support fucking imperialism if you play Call of Duty.
So we had a lot of interesting studies come out about games, especially as games got bigger and video games got bigger and bigger. And no, the data is never so simple as just because you are doing an action in a game, you will do that action. That's not how the data works. There are other problematic elements in games, like loot boxes, that have other mechanisms of working, right? But that data doesn't show that playing a game will directly cause you to do anything.
Sure, there are correlations, but again, part of it is how the person absorbs a message, right? So like, let's go back to our assumption earlier in the stream. Let's assume all the transphobic beliefs, all the transphobic arguments are correct. All of the anti-Semitic arguments are correct. If we assume that those are real things in there, the question is, how do those things affect you? Because at least to my mind, if you're not familiar with some of these, some of them may never actually appear to you. Like the shitty name they gave the girl in Code, as far as that goes, and again, I haven't been able to prove that yet, but let's assume it's true. If that's the case, by definition, that's in the code.
Oh.
The way the character is portrayed isn't great, but it's not particularly bad either. And as far as like the anti-Semitic stuff, ZZ and I had to do research on it because it went the fuck over our heads, which means to normies, it's invisible. Now you would have to show me how the correlation of seeing those tropes somehow correlates to these people doing these things, and it doesn't make sense.
You want to know what another example that this reminds me of is FNAF? Five Nights at Freddy and Scott Kaufman. Five Nights at Freddy's is another horror game that also has a creator that is known for being very conservative, Trump supporter and all that. And still, people still play FNAF games. Like, they still watch all the streams. Streamers still, it's a hard one to deal with, but people still do it. And it's fine. It didn't trigger any mass ending of the world.
Yeah, next argument. Why can't they just play a different game? Again, this is the totalitarian tendency. There is only one answer. And this is one, it ignores the premise of the charity. Vaush covered this. We covered this. Everyone covered this. This is the stupidest fucking thing you could ever say. You do not understand how fucking awareness works. If you were going to talk so much shit about this game and then build it up and do advertising woke brand style, this would have been the perfect way to weaponize this. But you people had to fucking do this shit. I don't understand this logic. Couldn't they just play a different game and raise money? Yes, they could. But you're not actually engaging with the premise. You're ignoring the entire point. Because a different game misses the entire point. Not to mention, there were people who tried to offer games so you didn't play this game. There was an itch.io bundle, but all the games in it were, for our perspective, most of them were kind of garbage.
They didn't have, half of them were paper PDFs. Or not paper, but PDF files of tabletop RPGs. That's not even the same genre of game.
This isn't any kind of competition. This is insane. Ignores the lives of trans people. These things are not connected. JK ignores JK ignores the lives of trans people. The game doesn't do that in and of itself. Even if it's made by horrible people, you would need to show me the messaging that specifically does this. It is offensive to you, but it does not necessarily spread JK's message. That's the point of the offense versus harm. People are offended by its existence. They have not demonstrated the harm. The fucking trans bills coming out that are fucking us over demonstrate harm. But everyone's so up in fucking arms about this because they're so butthurt that they don't actually take that into consideration. We have real fucking problems, and all you're doing is focusing on a fucking middle of the road game. And you made it as popular as possible. I hope you're fucking happy. Now we get into this part. Yeah, the game's offensive. The game is problematic, but so are many games. There are parts of Mass Effect Andromeda that are offensive. There are parts of, that game Hatred came out that was just about gunning people down. There's parts of Call of Duty that are offensive. There are parts of dozens upon dozens of games that have some problematic aspect. Even coming down to this. Why die on this hill? Why this one hill? People are playing Dead Space by EA. EA, a company known for completely fucking over their devs, completely running them into the ground, and basically doing stock buybacks that were put back into place by fucking Reagan so they can basically make infinite money on this. Or let's talk about Overwatch, like with its fucking loot boxes that are literally Skinner boxes made to fucking addict you. Or the fact that Blizzard got called out and named part of Activision Blizzard for their fucking being called out by the state of California for their abuse of women, their sexist policies, their sexual harassment, and it was included that they had marginalized trans people. If you're playing Overwatch 2 right now, you need to shut the fuck up.
And not just that, but Activision Blizzard as an entire company. Somebody actually did, content warning here, commit suicide because of the harassment at the company. And because of countless other reports, that's why they're getting sued by the state of California. They were that bad that it was so widespread that no, the state had to step in to sue them. Right? That's fucking awful. We can directly see that harm. Okay? But when you cherry pick things. No, you're working off of inconsistent values. And it doesn't make really any sense. And it's a great way to turn off our allies because it's like, oh, this group just decided they don't like this game, so we can't play it anymore.
No
What?
days off. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Like, why this hill? Why this one hill?
Because we've got fifis.
Next, but the boycott, parentheses, even if it's failing. This is 1, cry bully, 2, totalitarian tendencies, 3, canceling, 7, 8, and 9 are moralistic hierarchy, in-group versus out-group, purity culture. Again, liberal boycotts do not work except in very specific cases. They do not work with global capitalism because there is too many markets to control. They work in very small specific things with very specific items. Do you want people to bend the knee or do you want actual outcomes? This is what Vaush was talking about. You don't actually want outcomes if you want people not to play the game. You don't want people to actually come to a conclusion and realize the game is shit. If everybody would give a bad review of this game, it could have fucking tanked. But instead, everyone made a giant deal of it and it sold like hotcakes. And when people thought of a really good way to weaponize it against that silly bitch, all you did was whinge. This is what it comes down to. It's literally bend the knee or get actual outcomes. That's what they want from allies and from each other. This is the problem with the puritanical progressivists. This is the problem with woke scolds. This is the problem with fucking genderqueers. I don't care what you call them. They are people who are using progressive values to acquire power. And we can conceive of people who play this game and are still allies. The boycott failed. The boycott damaged our relationship with a lot of allies. I guarantee you this is going to harm us. I guarantee you this is going to fucking harm us because we went hysterical over a game.
Even when they wanted to do massive charities and things to help.
The boycott gave the right and JK a win, and I guarantee you the puritanical progressivists in their doomer fucking vision will sit there and take this as a win. It's like, well, we tried, and look at all these people that aren't our allies anymore. And if you keep saying that enough, they won't be, because you don't want to win. You want to be the most marginalized person possible, and you don't want to actually change things. You want to make your critiques from your ivory tower and not actually deal with problems. Also, there were alternatives to the boycott. Charity streams to make fun of her while raising money for trans people. Hasan would have been perfect for this. Vaush would have been perfect for this. I guarantee you someone could have twisted his arm on this.
Oh, yeah.
Ask allies to donate the same amount of charity that someone's GoFundMe. Imagine you do this as a trans person. Hey, we'd prefer you not to play this game, but if you're going to, here's a request. You're already spending $70. How about you spend another 40, maybe another 70 if you have it. Find a trans person's GoFundMe and put that $70 in there. Consider it like paying off your carbon emissions. You bought the game, put $70 towards a trans person.
Yeah, we do. There's a lot of companies moving to, giving some extra cents, on purchases, so that way you can they can afford the extra cost of eco-friendly packaging. That happens.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Think about it like this. To pay off your carbon emissions, you could literally just buy the game, donate a $70 to a random trans person's GoFundMe. Imagine a trans person's elation when 10 people donated $70 to their GoFundMe and they're $700 closer to their surgery.
Right.
But we can't have nice things.
Now, the other thing to ask of allies, too, that would have been really neat for streaming is, hey, you know what? Maybe instead of you playing the game, watch me play it, right?
Let's deconstruct it.
Yeah. Just watch me play it instead of getting it. Cool. You know what? That works, too.
Next, this was Zena's idea, and I think it's brilliant. Education using the game as catalyst. Mm-hmm. You could have sat down with a game and had trans creators. This could have been anybody. Fuck, we could have asked Contra to do it. We could have asked fucking Demon Mama to do it. And we could have sat there and gone through and deconstructed the game, pointing out the anti-Semitic tropes, pointing out the stuff, and tearing this game apart. But because we made it so toxic.
Well, and here's the other part. Our streaming buddy, Beyond Safe Words, has a degree in Russian history and a few other things.
Has a bachelor's in Russian history and a master's in social work.
A master's in social work, and is working on her PhD right now. And people love listening to her. It would have been a blast to have her be one of the education people come on and be like, hey, why don't I, go into how this game relates to relates to the history that she knows about and that is personal to her. That would have been way more fun and way more educational. And you know what? People would have actually learned something that they could directly use in their life.
Next, Mystery Science Theater 3000. For anyone who remembers that old ass show, you could have literally had streamers playing this game while one person did it, and then the rest just making fun of the plot. Literally just doing joke after joke after joke. It would have been brilliant. get someone like Vaush or Demon Mama, people with great sense of humors, and tearing this game apart. God, I would pay money to have them sitting on a couch watching this. Fuck, make it me and Fesh. It doesn't even need to be people that are super important. Put me and fucking Fesh and my friend Jeff on there and we will tear that motherfucker apart. And this comes down to simply his behaviorism. This is Skinner 101. As much as I hate that motherfucker, it comes down to operant conditioning. Positive reinforcement works better than punishment and shame. The way you get allies on your side is through positive reinforcement. If we could have gotten them and literally been like, hey, you know what? If you donate money to people's trans, dude, play the game. It's cool. Would everyone done it? No, but some of them would have.
Especially if it was the cool thing to do.
And if we seriously held them up and propped them up for it, people are like, oh, you're putting allies of trans people. No, you celebrate things. This is how you teach children. We keep making jokes about how cis people don't get gender and we call them children. Then act like it. Use Vygotsky scaffolding and give them help to understand. And also, use behavioral reinforcement. Positive reinforcement has a use.
Well, and this is 101 in, like, education too, right? We don't just constantly criticize kids and tell them what they're doing wrong. I brought this up earlier with the Oreo method, right? You put the positive around the critique to improve on. It works. It helps a lot. Well, and honestly, I think even on our end, it feels like I would much rather be dealing with this in a way that is positive, in a way that makes people smile and at least can have fun together still, than having to practice, like, tearing each other down. I've brought that up a few times on stream together too. What we do is we practice tearing each other down. And you know what? If you practice that, you're going to level up in those skills. And, well, that's a really shitty skill to have.
So A Spirit said, out of curiosity, I love all these suggestions you guys are putting out there. Are you going to act on any of them, even if you're relatively small? I totally get if you can't, especially because I know you're not full-time content creators, but I definitely would enjoy seeing you guys make fun of the game. Honestly, I would be down for that. I just don't want to get lambasted by fucking death threats.
Yeah.
Now, I'm willing to deal with those, but the problem is we've put out like movie commentaries. We've put out gameplays of us, and they just don't do well on this channel. Now, if you guys really wanted it, and I got like you'd get death threats from both sides. True. Y'all could actually like prove to me that you'd actually watch those videos and donate. That'd be worth it. But the problem is in the past, no one's watched them.
Now,
despite my jokes being bangers.
I will say, though, that we have reached out to Beyond Safe Words, but she was migrating, so we have not made any decisions on that yet about what she would like to stream with. So at this point in time, you know, it's just going to have to depend on what we're able to do or feel like we can handle as far as, you know, the blowback.
Yep.
That's always kind of in the back of our... And that's a great point, too. The blowback is kind of in the back of our minds, right? When we have to get ready to, like, hunker down and not touch comments, get other people to read comments for us. No, that takes a fucking toll on our mental health. It sucks.
Next. But then JK will win. She will regardless. If it does well, it'll just reify her beliefs, and if it failed, she would play victim. The woman is constantly good at twisting whatever the narrative is to make her look as pathetic or victorious as humanly possible. She's a fucking snake.
I'm going to be honest. I do believe that everybody can change. The possibility in the world exists. But so far, her behavior has shown no wish to change at all.
Some people change by will, some people change by 2x4. You don't beat her with money, you crush her spirit. She's a billionaire. She's still a billionaire. Even if this game never came out, she'd still be a billionaire and have this power. The reality is you defeat her by crushing her. If you had Hasan and Vaush and a number of other large streamers do fucking charity drives and raise as much money as humanly possible, imagine her fucking digging her nails in, tweeting as fast as she could because of all the trans people that just got help.
And again, this really is more of a narrative game. Like, that's really the name of the game right now.
Yeah, we would control the narrative. The narrative would have been trans people take transphobic J.K. Rowling's new game and use it to utterly crush her spirit, versus now, trans people do a failed boycott and the right makes fun of them. This gets to the last bits. I know we've been covering this for a while. We're almost done.
So here's one of the things that really, really sold me on, you know, just let people play the game. It's fine. A friend on Felis on the server has been playing,
Why am I hitting spacebar? Oh, that's why.
And the thing is once it got put to be this way, I went, oh, wait a minute. We talk a lot about the alt-right pipeline, all right? You can hear us talk about it, Vaush talks about it. And the way that young people tend to get introduced to this is in various, online spaces, especially, right? On Twitch. And let's say we don't really have any lefties anywhere near this game or anyone playing it. But you know who is? Normies, conservatives, alt-righters, because alt-righters don't care. Their values don't tell them not to play the game. They just come in, squat down, and, shoot their diarrhea wherever they want to. They'll just take over wherever. Lefties, no, we do the purity culture thing. We get the fuck out because apparently we're not allowed to touch something. It makes no sense. But imagine, though...
Treated it like the fucking Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah. But instead of just leaving the space, at least if we're around, we can influence what that narrative is. We can influence the things that people hear. We have an inroad to discuss the game with them, right? We can have literary discussions and critique and at least start educating more people about the issues. We actually have that opportunity because we are near the people playing a game and we're educating with something that is important to them, right? There's an emotional argument. If it's important to them, it's a really good teaching tool to be able to relate it back to them. So yeah, that's what really sold me on just let people play the game.
This whole thing is fucking embarrassing.
Embarrassing and painful to watch.
I'm sorry. I really struggled with this. This was the whole discussion that I had with Luxander on Twitter. I love Luxander still. I still consider Luxander a friend. I also really am struggling with this because people had some of the worst takes. I feel embarrassed that we were so politically ineffective. We looked hysterical, and now it's going to be used as a nail in the coffin every time we get upset by something because it's going to be one more way to gaslight us into assuming that we are being hysterical. Oh, trans rights really aren't being destroyed. If you know a single person that believes any of this shit about this game and tries to have this behavior, don't interact with them. They're fucking children. This is embarrassing. Next. These are emotionally reactivity looking like anger when it's really fear. This is why everyone was reacting so terribly. This is like Zen 101. This is the video of Zen we were planning on doing.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. This was me agreeing with you, not trying to get your attention.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, I think we have talked about this particular point in the Zen videos, but...
I haven't gotten this point. I've only mentioned it in brief.
Oh, no. Yeah, I think it's in other videos, but still. Fear is what underlies... Fear is one of the things that tends to underlie anger, right?
Well, specifically violent anger.
Violent anger and control, right? The way to deal with that fear, the fear and the hurt that comes with harassment and from the rest of the world as far as, trans issues go. And one way to deal with it is through control. It sucks, but control doesn't really work.
The issue is people were wondering, why is this so toxic? Why is this so reactive? Because something bad. Think about it. If you're a marginalized person and you're deeply afraid of the bad thing happening, whatever the bad thing is, it doesn't even have to be actually outlined. It could just be abstracted. You can get very, very afraid and scared and very sad very quickly. And instead of that, dealing with those feelings, including the feelings of helplessness, instead, people turn it outward. It becomes a reaction. It becomes violence. On this channel, we differentiate violent anger with clean anger. Clean anger is just that. It's anger. It's the acknowledgement of injustice. Mm-hmm. I am angry about how this was handled because it could have been so much better, and I care about the people involved. But violent anger would be lashing out at people because I'm afraid. And that's what every one of these people did. They justified behavior that was used against them. Jessie Gender reoccurringly used arguments saying, you don't use the oppressor's tools. You don't use the oppressor's tools. Not only did she fucking appropriate a black woman's goddamn talking point in the dumbest way possible, but on top of it, she absolutely misunderstood that quote. And in turn doing so, her and everyone like her proceeded to do exactly the thing she said not to. Your virtues will not save you from fascists. This is the problem, is that in some ways, when people have these emotional reactivity moments, they need therapy. They need to look at this shit. They need to deal with their stuff rather than lash out. Yeah, she turned it into a thought-terminating cliche. Absolutely true, Anarcho Delphius. And Illa Divine, the thing is, does this actually have anything seriously transphobic in it? To my understanding, beyond the claim about the sprite in the file saying Mr. Girl, the portrayal of the trans girl is questionable, but for the most part, anything overt? Not really.
And as far as I can tell, I've heard differing reports, but it's also a little bit hard to tell when everybody has already been so reactive to this game anyway, so, you know. But again, there's a lot of other games that are very transphobic.
Next, you can like what you like, full stop. So I went back and forth on this. Zena got convinced by Felis's arguments. I didn't. What I got convinced by was my own fucking ethics. On this channel, we have talked about everything.
Well, I mean, I got convinced by my own ethics too. I don't know if that's the way to say it.
Can I continue?
Yeah, that was just a really weird setup for the framework.
Okay, Zena got compelled by a decent set of arguments that worked with their values. I tested it against my own values previously stated on the channel, ran those through Zena, and came to a conclusion similar in a different order. Better?
Yeah, I think I brought up this one to you, though, so that's all.
God damn it. But yes, Zena did bring this up. The reality is, you can like what you like, full stop. These are, by definition, just the reality of things. We have talked about fan fiction on this channel. We have talked about the way in which people who have been in previous fan fiction communities have been bullied and treated like shit for exploring things. We've even talked about people talking about taboos within stories and things like that as ways to explore trauma. As long as you're not behaving in the world and doing something shitty, awful, or taboo, I don't give a fuck what you like. If you want to play a particular video game series, fine. If you want to write or like a particular, I don't give a fuck. The reality is I only care about in-the-world behaviors. And the fact is that this game and this entire reaction is the antithesis to that value Zena and I have.
Mm-hmm. And everybody's fine with it when it's, about Lily Orchard or it's about some teen writing fanfic because, oh gosh, we can feel for the teen, right? But suddenly, now that this value is being tested, a lot of people apparently don't share it anymore. And also, that is going to fuck up your communities and your young people because you are giving them conflicting messaging and they're not going to know what to pick. It's going to scare them into not voicing anything, not being a part of things, not being around.
Yep.
That's what that actually triggers.
All right, next. This is why this list matters. Full stop. The fact of the matter is that in every conceivable way, this puritanical progressivist list, these 11 points to go over and look at, cry bully, totalitarian tendencies, canceling as mob justice or witch hunt, conflation of offense versus harm, redemption is impossible, weaponization of selective identity politics, moralistic hierarchies, in-group versus out-group, purity culture, I like pancakes so you hate waffles, social cliques over political movement. All of these things are important because what they do is point out where this started and where these problems are. We use this to talk about the cancellation of Keffels and talking about some of Vaush's takes. Vaush made a funny joke about lesbians and it got taken out of context because people wanted to because they dislike him. Keffels got fucked and betrayed by the trans community because she does what she wants. And despite the activism she's done, including raising money and specifically trying to take Kiwi Farms off of Cloudflare, a number of activists just turned their backs on her because honestly, I think it's just high school table bullshit. It bothers me to no end how much trans people act like fucking high schoolers. I know we're going through a second puberty, but it doesn't give us the excuse to act like that. This list matters, and I need you all to understand this. Because this is the important shit.
It's okay to have whatever feelings coming up. The feelings are valid. The thoughts, fine. They're valid too. They're just thoughts. All right? There's stuff that arises in you. At the end of the day, though, the way that we behave in the real world is what affects each other.
Yep. So, next. We're almost done, I promise. This has caused community damage, and this is why these characteristics are damaging to the movement. If you needed an excuse for why PPs are a problem, this is why. If you want to know why woke scolds, or tender queers, or what we call them, PPs, puritanical progressivists, why these are a problem, here's why. Because they damage communities excessively.
Yep. Well, and the funny part is that we see this a lot on the Discord server, right? We see a lot of people come in who are way too nervous to post, too nervous to voice their opinion, right? They're afraid if they have the wrong one, they'll get dogpiled, they'll get harassed, or they'll get targeted by the mods, or their arguments will get twisted, into something else, and they will be considered a rule breaker for that reason. Like, no, I've heard some pretty messed up horror stories because of these things.
Yeah, like literally a psyops was done against Keffels, and like nobody cares. Nobody actually does anything about it except for the few people that actually paid attention to the fucking situation. And in the same way, this is done demonstrable harm to the community, and everyone's going to wipe their fucking hands of it and go, look, we did the best we could. No, you didn't. No, you fucking didn't. Well, hey, Spirit, if you want to talk in the Discord, you're welcome to. And now we're going to get into one part that's probably going to be a bit controversial for this being in the fucking video, but I don't care because this is fucking important and I need you guys to understand.
So now that we have just been squabbling about a game for a week.
1 second. I want to show a couple. There's a couple of them I want to show.
Oh, okay.
So first off, let's reiterate one thing. On Steam, this game won. 91.59% good. There are almost 359,000 people in this game. This game won. We lost. Full stop. I'm showing you this because you need some levity before we get into this. There are two wolves inside of you. Fesh made this joke, and I'm stealing it. You have Demon Mama's stream, which is watch Demon Mama live in 30 minutes, stop talking about Hogwarts Legacy, or I will blank your entire family. And at the bottom, you have Sages. I know we're in the way, but you can see it right here. It says, watch Sage Alexis live in 30 minutes talking about the never-ending Harry Potter JKR discourse. See, again, got to give you some levity before we get to the heavy shit. This is going to be the final thing, and if I get canceled, fine. I don't care. News recently came out, and this is a trigger warning about violence and, unfortunately, transphobia. A 16-year-old trans girl by the name of Brianna Gay had been stabbed to death in Warrington. Allegations are circulating of years of transphobic bullying leading up to this horrifying rest up sis. The cops claim it's not a hate crime, but it probably was. She was directly targeted, and this sucks. And she's not even the only one. She's just the most notable that came up on the feed. Apparently, there's at least 4 or 5 other trans teens, many of them girls of color. Is it pronounced J? I would have liked it better if it was gay, but okay, Brianna J. So first off, rest in power. This sucks. This girl was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. But why am I bringing this up in this video? Because we'll cover more about as this breaks. As this more information comes up, we will cover her again, I assure you. But why are we talking about it in this video about this stupid fucking game? The reason being is very simple. When people proceed to treat a video game as horrifyingly as they do this, you start to damage the movement. When you do not understand the difference between offense versus harm, everything being harm causes people to get activist fatigue. It causes them to stop caring, because if everything is harm, it becomes doomer.
Yep.
This is the stuff we need to care about. This matters. This girl fucking mattered, not this game. And the only reason the discourse on this game has started actually dying on Twitter is because this happened. But this is the thing that matters. This is the shit we should be talking about. We should be talking about the trans legislation. We should be talking about the death of these girls. These other girls I didn't even know about until like, fuck. But instead we're talking about this stupid, we spent all this time talking about this stupid fucking game. We treat everything the same as though it's the end of the fucking world because we treat people's emotional reactions as though they are somehow valid. We should be going against the newspaper that had her in the newspaper or the magazine that had her in there as a girl and then changed it to transgender girl because they, of course, want to weaponize that. We should go after the cops that said this wasn't a hate crime. We should go after and actually like protest against the people that make this girl, are going to try to bury this girl's death and not care. But no, let's be all online activists and bitch about a fucking video game. We love this community, but yeah, what Palmboy said is correct. Hogwarts Legacy is a goddamn distraction, and anyone that thinks otherwise has no real interest in what's going on in the world. And I call out every fucking activist, every single fucking person that made this thing a giant issue, because all of your credibility has been destroyed in my mind. The fact of the matter is, Alejandra, Alana, Jessie Gender, all of these trans women, all these trans activists, you could have just asked people not to play it and moved on. But you got so fucking mad. So upset that it became this giant fucking wedge point. It split the community, it split allies, and then you gaslit allies in saying that the harassment that happened wasn't real, when in fact...
No, it triggered very real damage to even more community spaces.
Caraballo dropped it? Good, because it was fucking stupid.
I lost the only social media space that I felt comfortable in. And again, it housed a lot of people with a really cool person who ran the instance and had been doing that for free for the longest time.
All people had to do was shut the fuck up. They could have let this game come and go and just let it go and move on. And they didn't. Now you're probably wondering why we just spent almost 5 hours streaming talking about this. Because you made us. You destroyed our spaces. You harassed me on my Twitter. Everybody who disagreed was suddenly a fucking enemy. I need everyone to understand this. She matters. This shit matters. Not this fucking game. Yeah, nobody cared about Fantastic Beasts 3. No one cared about Fantastic Beasts, period. I am strongly distrustful of any leftist, trans or otherwise, that is going to fucking hyperfixate on this nonsense. Did we focus on Scott Cawthon for a fucking week? No. We covered him twice on the channel. We moved on. And the only reason we even covered him because I like FNAF as far as the story goes. I felt conflicted about it. It was because I wanted to. And Zena cares about me and likes me talking about things I care about.
Mm-hmm.
But we cannot fucking hyperfixate on the smallest little things. This is the equivalent of manspreading. That's how bad this is. Instead of dealing with domestic abuse issues or dealing with the fucking misogyny or the goddamn pay disparities, instead we're pissed because dudes take up too much space on a subway. This is the same fucking thing. This game could have came and went and died. And instead what happened was nothing. Other than feeding our enemies, making us look bad, and threatening allies.
We need people to do better. We need people to actually look at the world and figure out ways to be very practical with their choices.
Listen, I work with trans people. I work with queer people. It's my job. I see several a day, many of which have gone through extensive trauma. If you don't know this already, if you're new to this channel, I am a therapist by trade. I work with LGBT people, I work on trauma, I do EMDR, and I work with people with ADHD. And the reality is that the people I work with, I see the shit they go through. I watch and see what they go through and understand what's happening. The shit they go through in their lives is what matters, not this fucking game. This game isn't going to touch any of their issues. But this is the thing I want you to understand from my job. A lot of trans people are traumatized by just the nature of being us in society is traumatizing. Big T or little t, doesn't matter. It's traumatizing. And the fact of the matter is that we have to manage that trauma respectfully. We have to manage that trauma well. Because for too long, we have let people in our community vomit it out in the most toxic ways possible and let it go because it weaponized things we wanted to weaponize. We need better values. If harassment is wrong, then it's fucking wrong. The point being comes out to this. Guys, do not fall for these fucking psyops. Do not fall for this fucking bullshit. The next stupid thing that comes up, the next time there's another fucking distraction, don't get pulled into it. Don't argue on Twitter. Leave. Get out of it. Do not pull into it. And if you see people start escalating, tell your friends, you are falling for a trick. You are falling for something incredibly shitty.
Yep.
You got played through woke brands and the fucking Streisand effect. You guys watch H-Bomb taking all this shit and then you forget it when it comes to us. Anyway, we'll see you in the next one.
See ya.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you could like, comment, and subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. If you want to support the channel further, you could go to patreon.com/Zena and Poppy, and you could become a patron for as low as $3. If you want to support us further, you could donate below with a super thanks comment, or you could, in fact, even go to our website, which is currently transgrowtherapist.org. You can go there and either donate directly, or you can even get a subscription and get a cool colored name in chat next time we stream. Anyway, thank you again.